Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Robert Sellers Sports Podcast. And today is such a special show. And that is because it's Sunday, March 15th, which can only mean one thing. It is Selection Sunday, and we've got ourselves a bracket. And there's so many places to go. There's so many ways that we can start talking about this. So I thought it would be prudent if we start at the very beginning. I'm talking about the very beginning. When God was creating the heavens and the earth, I think he had one thing in mind. And that one thing on mind was March Madness, was a 68-team tournament between the 68 best teams in this great sport of basketball where anything can happen. Any team can make a run. And so he created lights. He created humans. He created all these things with that in mind. And it took us a while to get here. But we are here. All of this college basketball season has led us to this moment. There's been so many crazy things that have happened. Nebraska, a team that's never won, not once, a tournament game, is a 4 seed this year. Miami, Ohio was undefeated in the regular season, and they made the tournament. Thank the good Lord. St. Louis went from being one of the hottest teams in the country to one of the coldest, and they're into anything can happen. Siena could beat Duke on Thursday. Long Island could take down Arizona. Anyone can make a run. It is truly the most exciting time in sports, and that is why I brought on one of my great friends, my Bible study leader, Mr. Nazario Pangalo. Nazario, what are your thoughts on this Selection Sunday?
Well, first off, folks, thank you to our one and only Robert Sellers for allowing me to come on this podcast. We've had this spring break trip planned, and we knew that on the Sunday we were here, we would be able to watch the selection show together. And we were like, Rob, please let me on the pod for it. And here we are. This is going to be an amazing week, an amazing time on this podcast. But one of the things, you're talking about God, you're talking about the amazingness of March Madness. Not only does he have that, but he gives us this 3-4 day period for us to create whatever insane ideas we want to. We can imagine any team making an insane run between the 3 days from Sunday when the bracket comes out till Thursday and the first games are played. You can create any scenario in your head and it makes sense. If you take Long Island to the national championship, I'm going to call you a psychopath, but you can convince yourself that it could happen. Whatever upset you think could happen, you can convince yourself within the next 3 to 4 days. No matter what happens, you're going to convince yourself. And then afterwards, you're going to wonder, why would I make such a dumb pick? But folks, that is okay. That is the beauty of March, because you want to be the person who picks the most incredible upset of all time. We are pumped to have a bracket today, folks. 68 teams can all embark on one journey. A week and a half ago, we had 364 teams all vying for one national championship. We've cut it down to 68. Here we go. Rob, I want you to give me your first thoughts when you see this bracket come out.
Okay, I will. First of all, I have a little bit of March Madness advice for everyone watching this video. And you don't have to take this advice. And first of all, don't ever let anyone tell you how to watch your sports, because if you enjoy it, watch it yourself. And if that's fun for you, do it. But my advice to those out there watching March Madness, if your bracket's busted in the first couple days, if it's busted in the first couple hours, just watch the basketball. It's not all about your bracket. And I know that it's really fun to have a good bracket that goes really long. But if your bracket's busted, there's still a lot of great basketball to enjoy. So that's just a little PSA, a little side note. As we pull up the bracket, oh my goodness, folks, we have a bracket. I just love looking at this so much. It's so much fun. First couple takeaways that I have. I have a couple teams that I thought got absolutely screwed that should have been way higher seeds that are now way lower seeds. First of all, Vanderbilt. Oh my goodness, why on earth is Vanderbilt a 5 seed? I don't understand it. It legitimately makes no sense. They made it to the SEC championship game. If my records serve me correct, they have a 26-8 record, which is better than a lot of the teams on the 4 seed and even the 3 seed line. They have big wins. They beat Tennessee twice. They just smoked Florida. They beat Bama. They beat Kentucky. I have no idea why Vanderbilt is a 3 seed or is a 5 seed and not a 3 or a 4 seed. I think that's ridiculous. So that's my first team that I think that got screwed over. My second team that I think got screwed over, and you're not going to like this. I'm going to say this, and you're going to say, you are such a homer, Robert, and it's favoritism, and it's all just your opinion on things. I think Houston should have been a 1 seed over Florida. I legitimately do. And this is not me saying Florida's not a good team. Florida's fantastic. They've got great predictive metrics. Houston has a better record. They have just as good of wins. They made it to the Big 12 title game and barely lost to Arizona, whereas Florida got blown out in the semis against a 5 seed per March Madness. I have no idea. I don't know what the argument is as to why Houston is the 2 seed and Florida's the 1 seed, other than the fact that they look really good and they have a good front court and they just won the national championship.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Does this argument, does your frustration even matter? Because we're sitting here right now with Florida as the 1 seed in the South Conference, Houston as the 2 seed in the South region. Sorry, not conference, the South region. These teams are going to hopefully play each other in the Elite Eight with a chance for a Final Four on the line. Does the 1-2 seed matter here? If Houston was the 1, Florida happened to be a 2, would these teams would have been put in the same region, or could they have been in different matchups where they wouldn't have played each other? Because right now, I'm sitting here saying, well, yes, Houston should be frustrated that they're a 2 seed, but however, they also get to go against the team that they think they should have jumped in the Elite Eight in their region.
And I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that to a point, because the difference between a 1 and a 2 seed is big. Like Florida, if they make it to the Sweet 16, they have to play either Nebraska or Vanderbilt statistically. Whereas Houston would have to play Illinois. I would much rather play Vanderbilt, or I think Vanderbilt's fantastic, and Vanderbilt just crushed Florida. But I would much rather play Vanderbilt or Nebraska than Illinois in the Sweet 16. And if Houston was the 1 seed, they would have been on that line, and they wouldn't have to worry about that.
Fair enough.
And it's seeding like Idaho's a much better team than Prairie View A&M or Lehigh is, and not a lot of people are going to talk about that because no one's ever really heard of Idaho basketball. But they are. Like that's why they're the 15 seed. And the other 2 teams are in the play-in game in Dayton. And also, I would rather play Clemson than I would St. Mary's. St. Mary's is much better than Clemson, at least in my opinion. So I think it does matter a little bit. But you're right. If they make it to the Elite Eight, it's 1 versus 2, and I'll be excited to watch it. And obviously, I'm unbiased. So I won't be cheering for anybody, obviously. But it's just gonna be great basketball. And the last team that I think got screwed was who was it? I think I forgot what it was. I was gonna talk about it at length because I thought that it was very obvious that they got screwed over. You know what? I'll remember it. I'll remember it later. You start with yours.
Yeah, so my first thought looking over the bracket is that the Big Ten got a pretty good draw in this bracket. If we go first off to Purdue, sitting at the 2 seed, they have Gonzaga, who might be the most fraudulent 3 seed. We've seen them, and they're injured. Let's be honest. They have some injuries. Who knows about Braden Huff? We don't know about that. But also, when's the last time they played a really good team? They played Santa Clara in the championship game. It was a really good game for a while. Santa Clara is sitting on the 10 line right now. Then we have their loss to Pacific way back in the day, a couple weeks ago in conference play. And we've seen them in the non-con. They played pretty well. However, they do have that loss to Michigan. So if you were going to say the most fraudulent 3 seed, we'd say Gonzaga, and that's Purdue's matchup. Then Wisconsin sitting there at the 5 seed. They've got High Point. Then in the round of 32, they get to play Arkansas. That's a good matchup for Wisconsin. That's going to be a very fun game if we get that matchup. Very high flying offenses. Not a lot of front court play right there. That's good for both of those teams. Then we go over to Michigan State. They're sitting at the 3 line, which we could argue about Michigan State being a 2 over a 3. However, they could get Louisville in the second round. I like Michigan State in that matchup as well. Then they would get UConn in the Sweet 16 if that 2 seed were to get there. I like Michigan State in that spot as well. Then we go down to the Midwest, Big Ten. Now I'm talking about the Big Ten right here. Michigan sitting at the 1 seed, okay? They could get Georgia or St. Louis in the second round, 8-9 seed. I feel good about Michigan playing against both of their front courts. We know Michigan is a front court-led team. Then we look at their Sweet 16 potential matchup here against Texas Tech or Alabama. Texas Tech, obviously, lost JT Toppin. Their front court is just lacking depth, lacking that high-end talent that we saw from the former Big 12 Player of the Year in JT Toppin. I like that matchup for Michigan, whether they get Texas Tech or they get Alabama. Then we look to the bottom of that bracket, whether it be Tennessee, Virginia, Iowa State. Those are the top 3 teams out of the bottom half of the Midwest region. I like Michigan against a lot of those teams. I like those matchups for the Big Ten. Then you go over even to Illinois. We can argue about them and Michigan State not being on the seed line that we could have had them at between the 3 and the 2 line. But Illinois, I like their matchup. They get to play Penn, who won the Ivy League out of the 3 seed. A crazy comeback earlier today. Great first game of the Sunday.
It was awesome.
But then they get North Carolina or VCU. Yes, VCU, a really tough A-10 team. North Carolina, however, coming off the Caleb Wilson injury, it's going to be tough for them. Good matchup there for Illinois. The Illinois versus Houston game in the Sweet 16. That will be fascinating. A great game. But for those Big Ten teams, I'm really liking where the Big Ten is matched up in this. And curiously enough, when you look at the other conferences like Vanderbilt and Florida, right next to each other, very curious. St. John's and UConn in the same region as well. Very curious. Then we look at the Big Ten. The Big Ten doesn't have many matchups early on in this bracket. Wisconsin and Purdue over there in the West region wouldn't play until the Elite Eight. Ohio State and Michigan State wouldn't play till the Elite Eight. I'm not saying Ohio State's going to make the Elite Eight. Then we look at the other regions. They're just not very close to each other in the Big Ten. The Big Ten has a lot of chances in this bracket to have a lot of their teams late in the season. And we know how much the Big Ten has had high-end talent in this season. They have a lot of good teams at the top end. We had the 7 seed from the Big Ten win the conference tournament in Purdue.
That's awesome.
Obviously, everyone knew they were one of the top 3 ranked teams in the country coming into the year, but they haven't been playing very well. And then they come out and win the Big Ten tournament. So Big Ten, that's my first thought. I think they've got a lot of advantages in this bracket.
No, I like that. I think that you're right about a lot of those teams and a lot of their draws, which leads into something that I think is really interesting to look at. I'm going to talk about Duke for a second. Duke is a fantastic team. They're number 1 in KenPom. I think they're number 1 in Torvik. It might be Michigan, but Torvik's a little funky right now. It is Duke. Duke is number 1 in KenPom and Torvik. They're fantastic. They have the National Player of the Year, Cam Boozer. They have his brother, Caden Boozer, and they're loaded. They're a great team. They've been phenomenal all season long. I think they got screwed over in this bracket a little bit. Not because they got the number 1 overall seed. That's obviously where they should have been, and that is where they are. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with them playing Siena. But this bracket, like this division, I think it's the East section is loaded. Like, this is awesome. First of all, UConn is a 2 seed. I mean, we all know how good Dan Hurley is in March. That team can beat anybody if they get hot. We've seen that. I do think UConn is still overrated. I don't think they have a chance to make the Final Four. But, I mean, it's March. Anything can happen in March, and especially
How many times over under do we say anything can happen in March in this podcast? At least 10.5 times.
I would slam the over on that 100%. But they also got Michigan State. I thought Michigan State was for sure going to be a 2 seed. I thought it's ridiculous that they're a 3. Michigan State is awesome. I think they're like the number 1 rebounding team in the country. If you put together offensive and defensive rebounding, their front court is awesome, and Jeremy Fears is one of the best point guards in the country. So that they are also in here. Louisville can catch fire and get hot and beat anybody. Obviously, they can't beat Duke because they got smoked by Duke twice in the regular season, but they're really good. They got the number 1 overall pick, debatably the most talented player in all of college basketball, with Kansas and Darren Peterson. That's in their region. So is St. John's, a team that is red hot that just smoked UConn.
And is
They're
coached
in
by
the
Rick
region.
Pitino.
And is coached by Rick Pitino. I mean, look at the coaches that are in this section. Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Dan Hurley, and Rick Pitino are all in the East, alongside Duke and Louisville, and one of the biggest sleeper teams in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State has been going off recently. They had a really slow start to the season, and they didn't have a quad 1 win until like the month of January or something like that. Like, they were not performing well in big games, but they have absolutely turned it on. I think they have 4 quad 1 wins in like the last, I don't even remember how much it was. Everyone, welcome Cole to the podcast. He obviously needs to come grab something. No? What do you need? Are you just listening?
Yeah, Cole, what are you doing listening to the podcast?
We got a live audience. Shout out our live studio audience on the podcast this afternoon. Zach and Cole, man, they're doing a great job down there. Anyway, Ohio State, they're the 8 seed. If we get Ohio State Duke in the second round, I'm telling you, how many times have we seen a John Shire Duke team fumble a game in the late moments of a basketball game? If they give the ball to Bruce Thornton late in a game against Duke, it's in the East region too, so Ohio State can pack that stadium out. I would be worried about that. And also, TCU can beat anybody. TCU's beaten Florida. TCU almost beat Arizona. They should have beat Michigan. They should have beat TCU. Like, Michigan. TCU is loaded with big-time performances this year. So if I'm Duke, and I'm looking at other regions, and I'm looking at my region, a region with Ohio State, TCU, St. John's, Kansas, Louisville, Michigan State, UConn, and UCLA, who we haven't even talked about, I would be telling myself, as the number 1 overall seed, how did we get this? How is this what we're given? I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I think if I was a Blue Devil fan, I would not be very happy with this.
Yeah, and you see on the, when we watch the selection show, we see when they add up the seed lines. So they have the top team ranked number 1, the top 2 seed ranked number 5. Then they add up all the seed lines. Lowest means more difficult. Duke, by far, was the lowest seed lines of the top, I think it was 4 seeds that they do, top 4 or 5 seeds in the entire 4 regions. Duke has the toughest one. And I just wonder, it's the number 1 seed. You're giving this team the top overall seed. You're awarding them. They have earned this through their season, through their conference tournament, and you say, doesn't matter. We're going to make this as difficult as possible. It blows my mind every single time. It keeps on happening. I feel like it might happen last year. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to keep happening. And I'm trying to look up where those games are going to be played for Duke. They're going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. So they will have a packed house, no matter whether the first round or the second round for those games. But we know those fans will travel wherever. Duke fans are going to be right there for whoever they play in the second round, whether it be Ohio State or TCU. That first game against Siena, who knows? I'm never going to pick a 16.
Hey, anything can happen.
But you never know. You never know. Yeah. And so my second takeaway was actually, I feel really good about Arizona. shout out to my future bracket that we're going to be picking here in a second. But I really like the Arizona Wildcats. They get to play Long Island, one of the teams from the Northeast, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah,
The Northeast Conference up there. And then they get Villanova, Utah State in the second round. Villanova, they've had a pretty good season. Kevin Willard's first year. They did decent in the Big East. However, we know it was a down Big East. When did they play big teams? They played UConn, they played St. John's. They were not on the same court as those two teams. So whether it be Villanova or Utah State, the team from the Mountain West, I feel pretty good about Arizona going into the second round. Then, Sweet 16 matchup. They're going to get either Wisconsin or Arkansas. Both of those teams, their front courts are decent. They've got some athletic players, but I don't think they can match up on the front court with Arizona. I think Arizona has a really nice route towards the Elite Eight. And then, if they get to the Elite Eight, they've got number 2 seed Purdue, 3 seed Gonzaga, number 6 seed BYU. I feel really good about Arizona against any of those teams. We've seen them play BYU. And then Gonzaga, I think, would be the most interesting matchup just because Graham Ike in the center right there. I think that front court matchup could be interesting, that where Gonzaga could give them trouble. But then Purdue in the front court, I do not think that Purdue can play with Arizona. I just do not see how Braden Burris and Jaden Bradley all over Braden Smith. Then you've got Copeet in the inside there for Arizona. I don't see Oscar Clough being able to battle in there. Trey Kaufman-Renn, I don't know. I just feel like the size of Arizona could really give them a bad matchup. So I like Arizona's region a lot. That's my second takeaway. From all the 1 seeds, I really like Arizona in the spot that they're in.
You know, I like that. And people talk about Florida having an embarrassment of riches in the front court. And with Arizona, it's not just the fact that they're big, it's also the depth. Like, they've got so many great guys. Like, having Krivas at the 5, having Koa Pete able to play the 4, and then having Toby Awaka come off the bench alongside Karchenkov, I think they say that guy's name. I struggle with that all the time. But they just have so much depth. And with March, we see it a lot. Guys get in foul trouble. If Krivas gets in foul trouble, if Koa Pete and Toby Awaka had 4 fouls against Houston in the Big 12 championship game, they had to go out for like 5 minutes late the second half. They just brought on Karchenkov, and they brought on Krivas, and they still just suffocated Houston, of all people, in the front court in that game.
Yeah, and another thing to go along with Arizona, not only their front court. Rob and I have been talking about this season how much front courts have dominated, but that one thing stays true, and that guards win in March. That's my favorite thing about Arizona compared to the other 3 1 seeds, is that they have Jaden Bradley and they have
Braden Burris.
That 1-2 punch right there from the backcourt. Not only do they have that incredible front court presence that can match up with anybody, that travels, front court travels. But to win the high-end games, to win deep in March, it's the backcourt. And I believe in Jaden Bradley. I believe in Braden Burris. And you saw on Friday night in that game against Iowa State in the semifinals. Wow, was that a game. But Jaden Bradley finds a way to make that big shot. And that's what wins. That's what wins deep in this tournament. And that's why I like Arizona as the top 1 seed in this tournament. And that's crazy to think about. Arizona, Duke, and Michigan, they all had a case at one point during this season to be the top overall seed. And I respect Duke for getting it. I think they should have got it. They were 32-2 with the big win over Michigan in the non-con, won their tournament. Arizona has an amazing case as well. They won 32-2. They beat Iowa State and Houston in the last 3 days. On Friday night, they beat Iowa State. Yesterday, they beat Houston to win the Big 12 championship. And we were watching that, and we were getting fired up for Houston's comeback. They made it a 59-58 game. And then I said a couple minutes later, I was like, yeah, Houston made that run, but wow, Arizona really punched back and stretched that lead back out and made it super difficult for Houston. That is tough to do against the Kelvin Sampson team, and Tommy Lloyd's team did that on Saturday night. So Arizona, my thoughts on them are one of my just glaring thoughts from this bracket is that Arizona has a really, really good spot. I really like where they're at.
No, I agree with that. I think Arizona's got as good of a chance as anybody to not only make a run, not only make the Final Four, but to win the national championship. And I think everyone's been so focused on Duke and Michigan this year, they kind of are sliding under the radar. Like, I've heard people say, oh, is Duke, Michigan in the field? I'm taking Duke, Michigan. And that's been the debate. Duke, Michigan in the field. Arizona has as good of a chance to win the national championship as Duke or Michigan does, or as anybody does, 100%. So I agree with that. I also think it's interesting looking at the coaches of the 4-1 seeds. John Shire, Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May, and Todd Golden. All young guys, all heavily focused on analytical or in efficiency guys, and all guys that like to dominate the front court. That is the trend right now for elite college basketball. Young coaches who dominate the front court and are really hyper-focused on efficiency. That's what the trend is.
I'm going to ask you one question. We watched last year. We saw 4 teams that were really high in KenPom. I believe all 4 of them, the 4 1-seeds that made the Final Four, which we haven't had happen with all 4 1-seeds making the Final Four since 2008. That happened last year. All over 35 in KenPom. We knew they were high-efficiency teams. They were really talented all across the board. But we had Walter Clayton, make incredible plays that you could say single-handedly won the national championship last year, whether it be against UConn, whether it be against Texas Tech, Auburn, or Houston in the national championship. Walter Clayton was unbelievable. Out of those 4 onesies right now, what one player are you taking to have the ball in his hands to make that play late in the game, make that shot? Right now, I genuinely don't know. Like, I think Arizona have Jaden Bradley and Braden Burst, but I like them a lot. However, there is no one close to Walter Clayton on those 4 teams. Yes, you could say Caden Boozer, Cameron Boozer. I'm also talking more guard, ball handling based players right here. But it's really tough looking at those top four seeds, seeing who has that top guard that's going to make that play. You got Elliot Cadeau from Michigan. A lot of people would say that they don't trust him late in the game. Caden Boozer, we've really only seen him come along as a top option for Duke in the last week, really, since Caleb Foster went out with that injury. Arizona, they had Jaden Bradley win the Big 12 Player of the Year award. But it's tough to watch him and say, yeah, no doubt late in the game, I'm going with him. Then Florida, we have talked about throughout this year, Xavier Lee and Boogie Flame. They haven't lived up to what they were expected to be with their NIL deals coming over in the transfer portal. So, Rob, I asked you, out of those 4 1 seeds, which guard do you trust to have the ball in his hands?
I think that's a great question because, like we were talking about Florida's run last year, how good they were, how amazing they were. They were losing to UConn almost the entire game. They were down 10 plus to Texas Tech in the Elite Eight, and they wouldn't have won that game if Walter Clayton Jr. didn't just fully take over. And there's no analytics on that. There's no efficiency. That's just, I want the game more, and I'm a dog, and I'm going to go out and make big-time shots. Out of the 4 1 seeds, the 2 players I trust the most, I would say, are a guard on Arizona who is not Jaden Bradley, who is not Braden Burris. Anthony Delorso, I think, is insane. He's so good, and he's been on fire recently. I get his career high against Houston on the road, and then has broken that career high like twice throughout the rest of the season. So I really like Anthony Delorso. Maybe not from a shot creating standpoint, but if I'm giving the ball to anybody, I'm giving it to Anthony Delorso. And then also Isaiah Evans on Duke is such a dog. He's great. Like, he's really, really good. I wouldn't trust John Shire to give him the ball, though, because he just seems hell-bent on we're going to give Kane Booster the ball at the top of the screen and let him get downhill. That's what Duke does late in games. I don't know why they don't give it to Isaiah Evans, because honestly, that's what I would do if I was John Shire. Obviously, John Shire is a better basketball mind than I am. It's close, but he's a little bit better. But I will say, on Florida and Michigan, I mean, I love Yaxel Lindeborg, and he just hit a buzzer beater 3 to beat Michigan. So I would give it to Yaxel Lindeborg, and he's awesome. But from a shot-making perspective, like, if I'm giving the ball to anyone one-on-one and letting them cook, out of all the guards, I think I'd take Jaden Bradley.
Yeah.
But if it's taking the shot late in the game, I like Anthony Delorso.
Yeah, in the ACC title game last night, Duke defeats Virginia 74-70. Isaiah Evans, 20 points, 4 of 8 from 3. That's what you need from him. He has so much talent. He's about 6'6", long arms, but he can knock down anything, and he has confidence shooting it. That's what I love the most. You know me. What do I always say? I say shoot it with confidence. Isaiah Evans shoots it with confidence. I like that take right there. That's a really, really good take. And it doesn't matter if he's getting it passing from somebody else, whether it be Cameron or Caden Boozer, kicking out to him, whether he has the ball in his hands, he's creating his own shot. I feel really good about Isaiah Evans. That's a really, really good pull right there. I like that a lot. And it's going to be such a fascinating tournament to see. The pressure is turned up beyond. You just can never replicate this, no matter how many practices you go to, no matter how many games you play. The pressure when you get to the tournament is different. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. The pressure's different. And some players know how to play at that stage. Some guys lock in more than they ever have. And that's what I was talking about when Ole Miss made that run all the way to the semifinals. They were right there with the shots go to the SEC title. But the pressure turned up, and they turned up. Who is going to do that this year in the tournament, and who goes the other way? Who gets in that pressure moment and falters? That's what changes everything about these sports. You look at these teams. We have been talking about it the entire year. Arizona, Duke, Michigan, and Florida. They're just off the charts. So good in KenPom. Their efficiencies are just out of the roof. How are they going to be beaten? And then we talk about Florida last year. It's possible to be beaten when that pressure hits you. It's just different, and that's why we love them much.
We really do. I mean, it's going to be so epic. And the pressure, it does break teams. But it also makes diamonds. Like, every single year, it's somebody from some conference, from some region, that just goes off and becomes a legend. It was Walter Clayton last year. It could be Jack Golke. It could be DJ Burns. It could be literally anybody that takes the pressure and just thrives in it. And there are so many potential people in this tournament that could do that same thing on literally every team. Like, it's going to be amazing. So with that, I think we're going to start filling out our brackets. And I have a mentality of what I do when I make brackets. And again, this is a thing that if you like making 40 brackets every single year, if you like making 400 brackets, do it. It's a lot of fun. I could sit out and fill brackets all day long. I really could. It's a lot of fun. If you like just making one bracket and making it your own, calling it your child, maybe giving it a kiss and a bow or whatever, do that because that's awesome too. But I have my way of doing it. I always make 3 brackets every year. I do a hurry bracket. I call them 3 H's. Hurry, which is right after Selection Sunday it's happening, and I'm going to do that one right now. And then I do my heart bracket, which is what I want to happen. It's very biased because I fall in love with a lot of teams in the college basketball season. I'd like to see them succeed. And then I do a head bracket, which is I really think about it. I get into the nitty gritty. I search Torvik. I search Evan Mia. I search my brain. I search the Cosmos, and I find everything I can about all these teams. That's my head bracket. That's the one that I probably care about most because it's actually my thoughts. It's what I believe. It's no bias. It's no instant reaction, anything. It is actually sitting down and thinking about it. So I'm going to be doing that over the next 2 to 3 days. But the bracket I'm going to make right now, and what we're going to start doing, is my hurry bracket. And I think you're going to do the same thing too.
Absolutely.
And we're going to compare. We're going to talk about it. There might be some disagreements. Might be some discussions to be had. But that's why we're filming it and putting it on YouTube.
Absolutely.
So y'all can have these discussions with us.
And if you agree with me, Rob, I say we go region by region, first round, then move on, region by region. We just keep going through it. And then whenever we disagree, we can have a conversation about it if it's necessary. And then, we'll see what happens. And my one counterpoint to Rob before we get into this is I think your hurry bracket will be your best bracket. And I say this for one reason only, especially for Rob and I. We've watched a ridiculous amount of college basketball. We know too many stats. We know too many players on too many different teams. We know the knowledge. Our instincts for this game are better than any head bracket that we're going to make. We will overthink things. You will overthink things more than ever when you do your head bracket. That's okay. But that's why I love the hurry bracket. I feel like my hurry bracket, I could be proved wrong this year, small sample size. But the hurry bracket, I think, could be your best because you're just instinctively, that's what you know, that's what you think. If you're a real ball knower, your hurry bracket will be the best.
I agree with that. I just love my head bracket because I spend way too much time on it. That's the thing.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Okay, so with that, we're starting Duke Siena. Here, this is why you tuned in, folks. Who are you taking, Duke or Siena?
That is a Thursday game, I believe. They haven't released the times yet. That's one of my favorite parts. I love when the bracket comes out, but I love seeing when the times come out for each game. It's just awesome.
That's just one little adrenaline.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
My screen is currently being shared to you guys, so you guys are seeing my bracket officially on the screen. Duke Siena, the first pick of our brackets.
The hurry, man.
I'm going right to Duke.
Going right to Duke. You know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I will say, Siena, it's a cool story. They were 3 seed, and I think it was the Metro Athletic Conference.
The MAAC, not the MAC, the MAAC.
No, not to be confused with 2-bid Mac. That's a pretty high quality.
We're talking about
quality
them
conference there. Siena, I really wanted Merrimack to be in the tournament. I'm not gonna lie, they were the team that Siena beat in the first round. So I have a little bit of spite. So I'm picking Duke by 50 out of spite, pure spite pick.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, give me Duke.
So we're gonna go on to the 8-9 game, Ohio State versus TCU.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, this is gonna be awesome. My hurry says take Bruce Thornton. Take the guard that you believe in. Take Bruce Thornton in that game. I'm going Ohio State.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is the best game of the first round. I cannot wait for this game. You know how they always make an 8-9 game the first game?
It's going to be the first game of the day, 100%.
I hope to God that this is the first game of the day because this game is going to be awesome.
It is on Thursday.
It's going to be
so it should be 100% the first game of the tournament we could get between TCU and Ohio State. It could be St. Louis, Georgia.
They gotta give us Ohio State TCU, man.
Shout out whatever sports betting site you follow. They already have the lines out on the games if you're curious. And the Ohio State Buckeyes are favored by 3.5.
Wow. I mean, shout out ESPN Sportsbooks. I will say TCU is one of the hardest teams to predict in all of college basketball because they are so sporadic. They have beaten Florida, a 1 seed. They took Michigan, a 1 seed, to overtime. And they also lost at home to New Orleans. That all happened in the same year. They are so up and down, crazy all over the place. I don't even know what to think. It's going to be so impossible to pick TCU. They could lose this game by 30. They could also beat Duke in the second round. But I agree. I'm going with Bruce Thornton. I'm going with Ohio State. So we're 2 for 2 in terms of similarity right now.
Okay. This is fascinating by the selection committee. Last year we had St. John's 2 seed, win the Big East, RJ Lewis Player of the Year, and Kansas and Arkansas didn't have a great year. They ended up falling to the 7-10 matchup. John Calipari versus Bill Self in the first round. And we thought maybe we could get Bill Self versus Rick Pitino. Maybe we could John Calipari versus Rick Pitino. And we got John Calipari versus Rick Pitino. Now, here in the East region, we have a 4-5 potential matchup between Rick Pitino and Bill Self. They just couldn't get enough of it. They had to go back to the well. And now we've got St. John's, Northern Iowa, Kansas versus Cal Baptist here in the section. These games will be played, I believe, on, let's see here. These games will be played on Friday between St. John's and Northern Iowa, and then between Kansas and Cal Baptist. Some very fun Friday games right there. Right off the heart, I'm going Rick Pitino. I'm not overthinking it. I know Northern Iowa is a great team. They come from the MVC, and they were one of the first teams to punch their ticket to March last Sunday, a week ago. It's been a little while since they've played, but I'm sticking with St. John's. I'm sticking with Rick Pitino.
You know what, Nazario? I love St. John's, man. I do. I love the Garden. I love Rick Pitino. I hope he wears his white suits. Those get me geeked up. I love this team. Dylan Mitchell is awesome. Dylan Darling is one of my phone wallpapers. I love this team. St. John's is amazing. Northern Iowa is, I cannot get them out of my head, man. I cannot get Northern Iowa out of my head. They are fantastic. You know what they do? They rebound at a super high rate, and they are dead last in the country per Bart Torvik in pace. Like adjusted possessions per 60 minutes, they are dead last. They play at the slowest pace that anyone plays at in all of college basketball. And what does St. John's like to do? They like to play fast. They like to force turnovers. They like to get out in transition. And Northern Iowa's just not going to let them do that because they're going to play slow. They're not going to turn it over. They're going to get their best shot every possession. And they were really injured early in the season. They're back healthy. That's why they were such a low seed in the Missouri Valley. I think they're playing their best basketball right now. I think they're going to slow it down. I think St. John's was on an emotional high after winning the Big East. I'm picking Northern Iowa to win this game. And this is all hurry. I'll probably find some statistic in the next week that makes me pick St. John's. But give me Northern Iowa. I think this is one of the biggest sleeper teams in the entire country in terms of mid-majors. I think they're awesome. I'm riding to Northern Iowa. I'm doing
First upset picked between the two of us. And one thing I'll say, to add to your point, this game, you're talking about the Garden, this game is being played in California. San Diego, California.
Dude.
This might be one of the most sterile crowds in the country happening this week. So what does that mean? This means that, one, we've got Kansas Cal Baptist coming up. I don't know whether that game is before or after the St. John's game, but that game will be played at the same spot. A lot of Cal Baptist fans will be
Cal
there.
Baptist is going to pack that place out,
And you
man.
know what happens is fans just rally around whatever team the group just decides to. And if Northern Iowa makes this a close game, there is a massive chance those crowds just rally around Northern Iowa. And that puts St. John's in a very tough spot. But I think one thing for this game is you talked about the slow pace. Those turnovers are going to feel monumental because when St. John's gets a turnover, they're getting out and they're getting a bucket. When those happen in that game, they are going to feel just like complete momentum shifts. I'm going to stick with St. John's because of Rick Pitino, but Northern Iowa, they could make that a fascinating game on Friday.
Yes, and I will say an important thing for Northern Iowa in this game, they have to get out to an early lead. If they're losing at the beginning, this is not a team that is predicated off of elite shot making. That's predicated off of going on runs. Like if they go down, if St. John's goes out and goes up 20-10, just ball game. I hate to say it, but it's ball game. So Northern Iowa, they have to take a lead. They have to shut down Zuby early, and if they can do that, I love taking Northern Iowa in this game. So I'm doing that.
Next up, we got Kansas, number 4 seed in the East region, playing Cal Baptist, the last team on Saturday night, not even Saturday night, on Sunday, early Sunday morning, to punch their ticket to the tournament in the WAC. They took out the number 1 seeded Utah Valley 63-61 to punch their ticket to the tournament. Kansas, Cal Baptist coming up from San Diego, California. The crowd will be on Cal Baptist's side, but I believe that Darren Peterson is just too good. I'm going to take Bill Self. I'm not doing anything crazy out here. I'm making it simple. We're taking Darren Peterson, and we're taking Kansas Jayhawks here in the 4-13 matchup.
You know what, Nazario? Maybe it's just because I love mid-major basketball so much. I watch way too much mid-major basketball. I want to pick Cal Baptist so bad. And, like, the fact that this game is in California, it feels like heavenly wisdom. It feels like it's God's will for me to pick Cal Baptist in this game. It really does. This team they rebound really, really well, and they push you off the three-point line. Honestly, I would love to pick Cal Baptist. They're really hot right now. They're at home. I really like the way their team plays. This is just a bad matchup for them. I 100% think this is just not great. Darren Peterson is going to be healthy. He's going to be playing. Kansas, they are so well-rounded. They defend so well. I don't think Cal Baptist is going to be able to score consistently. I am picking Kansas, but I'm being smart. This is me showing you that I have self-control. Like, I would love to pick Cal Baptist. In my heart, I might have Cal Baptist going to the Elite Eight, but I'm picking Kansas to win this game.
An incredible stat here that I'm just don't know what the selection committee was thinking. Cal Baptist is 15 minutes 8 miles away from the arena this game is going to be played.
Oh,
This is a road game for Kansas in the first round.
I wanna
Bill
take
Self
this
has got to
so
be
bad.
losing his mind. That's crazy. Wow. 8 miles away from their first round opponent. That is crazy. And then once we get to the second round, St. John's, Kansas, and San Diego, what in the world? I don't know what that crowd is going to look like, but Cal Baptist, those fans are going to pack that place out. That's going to be an exceptional atmosphere on Friday. I am pumped for that. But those are our picks for the top half of the East region. Let's move to the bottom half. We've got Louisville, South Florida, Michigan State, North Dakota in the same quad. Louisville versus South Florida, the AAC champions in South Florida, the Bulls, the top team in the conference. They won the regular season and the conference tournament, but I'm sticking with the Cardinals from Louisville. Now, Michael Brown is going to have to be back for this game and for the tournament for Louisville to have any sign of life, but I'm still taking Louisville over the South Florida Bulls of the AAC.
I'm gonna want to pick every single upset, man. South Florida's so good. Like, they're actually so good. They're so athletic. They're big. They have so much length defensively. They're top 60 in Torvik, I think, in offensive and defensive efficiency. Like, they're very, very consistent. That's what they're known for, is their consistency. And what is Louisville known for?
Inconsistency.
Inconsistency. So, honestly, and they also play really fast. Like, South Florida is like top 20 in tempo. So South Florida is going to be pushing the court all the time.
Tempo. Okay.
15 to 10. Oh my gosh.
This game's going to be off the roof. Louisville currently sitting at 62nd in tempo. Not the highest number in the world, but they want to get out too.
And what's their defensive number?
defensive rating for Louisville sitting at 25th?
Oh, that's not bad. That's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I think this game's going to be really high scoring. I think it's going to be crazy. But in a crazy game, I'm siding with the guards and the shot making of Ryan Conwell and Michael Brown. And if you watch the ACC championship, if you watch the Louisville SMU game, Ryan Conwell just single-handedly won that game for Louisville. It was awesome. And then also Michael Brown can go off. He can 100% go off. And you can't out Louisville. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So South Florida's gonna have to find another way to win. And I think the thing to watch out for in this game, Louisville's front court is not very great. They're not a great rebounding team. South Florida, I think, is 6th in Torvik in offensive rebounding. I think that was the stat I saw. Tell me if I'm right.
South Florida offensive rebound. They are 6th in offense.
6th in the country in offensive. They're gonna be crashing the boards like crazy off all their misses. So that's how they're gonna win. If South Florida wins, it's by offensive rebounding the heck out of the ball, getting extra possessions, and winning that way. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be high scoring. And in a close, high scoring battle, I have to take Louisville because that's just their bread and butter.
This game will be played in Buffalo, New York. 6.5-point favorites are the Cardinals of Louisville in that first round game. The next game in that quad, Michigan State facing the Summit League champions, North Dakota State, the 1 seed from the Summit League. 2 1 seeds from the mid-majors coming out in this quad. Going to make it very interesting. I'm going to stick with the strong front court and great play from guard Jeremy Fears. I'm going with Michigan State and Tom Izzo, which would create a wonderful second round of head coaches out here in the East region. Sticking with Michigan State, going all chalk right now, Rob.
Yeah, I don't mind that. It's smart. So it makes sense. It's not fun, but it's smart. I'm going to pick Michigan State. I'm not going to make this one complicated. I think North Dakota State's really cool. They have that one white dude that pulls up in transition all the time. I really like him. But North Dakota State is a great rebounding team. You're not going to out-rebound Michigan State. Like, they like to bully people. You can't bully the bully. That's not how it works. So I'm taking Michigan State, which would set up Michigan State Louisville in the second round. Cannot wait for that one. The contrast in play styles there would be spectacular. But we'll get there when we get there. Let's move on to UCLA, UCF.
Yeah, that final quad here in the East region, the first round games, those are going to be coming your way on Friday from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I just love seeing where they throw teams in the first round. It's always interesting to see. So we'll have UCLA, UCF from Pennsylvania. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of fans of either of those teams at that game. But once again, I'm going with the guard. I'm going Donovan Dent. He's been playing really good basketball recently. We saw a little bit of life from UCLA in the Big Ten tournament, won a couple nice games before falling out, I believe, to Purdue in that tournament. So I'm liking UCLA, sticking with Donovan Dent. I like my guards. Rob.
And there's nothing wrong with liking guards, especially this time of year because guards do win in March. I'm going to start by talking about UCF. I really like UCF. I think that they've been really impressive this year. No one thought they were going to make the tournament. They were one of the bottom teams in the Big 12 preseason. And Riley Kugel and Themis Folks, I think, are both really fun. And they have this one dude in their front court. I can never remember his name. He's big. He's a great defender. So I really like the way this UCF team is built. They're not matching up with UCLA. So I got my respect out for UCF. That's my respect for the Trojans. Or not the Trojans. The Golden Knights? I think they're Golden Knights. I got my respect out for them. They're not beating UCLA. UCLA's on fire. Donovan Dent is amazing. I think he's a little banged up. I remember hearing a stat late in the year of Donovan Dent. Like there was a 4-game stretch that he went on when he had 54 assists and 2 turnovers in like 6 games, something like that. It was a crazy stat. I don't remember exactly what it was. He has been on fire. He is injured. Like he's a little banged up, which is a bit of an issue. We're gonna have to monitor that throughout the upcoming days. But UCLA is much better. I would be shocked if UCF wins this game. I think there are a lot of fun 7-10 matchups in this tournament. This is not one of them. So I feel like we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. I'm taking the Bruins.
I agree with that. I don't think UCF has been playing well recently either. Kind of on a downward slide. They weren't close enough to get really on the bubble. We knew they were going to be in the tournament, but haven't been liking the way they've been playing. Now, our final game of the first round for the East region, UConn versus Furman. Furman had a nice run in their conference tournament to get there, win that game. I know Rob was talking a lot about their shot making while that tournament was going on. But I'm sticking with UConn. Dan Hurley's going to use the motivation that they didn't get the 1 seed and their loss in the conference championship game to St. John's as motivation. I think UConn will come out and look pretty well against Furman here in Pennsylvania. That's a good spot there for UConn in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Those fans will get down from Connecticut. I 100% believe it unless there's a snowstorm stopping them.
I think UConn's great. I think they're fun. I think they have a lot of style to their game. I will say, I think they're going to win this game. It better not be close. Because if this game is close, like any level of closeness whatsoever to it, Furman is healthy now. Furman shot making, like you said, it is awesome. Like I was watching their game against, I think it was UNC Greensboro. Furman, when it is late in the game and it's close, Furman is elite at making big-time clutch shots, and UConn is not whatsoever elite at doing that. So I think UConn's going to blow them out, but there's 2 possibilities for this game. A blowout from UConn or a Furman Paladins win. Those are the only 2 possibilities. Frankly, I think the first one is very likely. I think UConn just matches up really well and is going to blow them out. But I'm just saying, it's close. Watch out, because Furman can make those shots.
So we're going to move on to the second round of the East region bracket. And wow, we're going to have a game between Duke and Ohio State in the second round. And this is going to be one of the more interesting picked upsets. Duke versus Ohio State. Now, this is a money-grabbing game, 100%. 2 massive fan bases. I'm interested to see what the crowd looks like there in South Carolina. Duke, Ohio State, man, this is a tough one. I just don't see Ohio State quite being able to keep up with Cam Boozer. I think this could be a great battle, but I'm gonna just stick with the guns, going Duke, but I think it could be interesting. I just don't think that Ohio State's gonna be able to keep it close enough to give Bruce Thornton a shot late in that game.
Oh, man. Ohio State has been so good recently. Like, they have been absolutely on fire. They nearly beat Michigan. What else did they do? They beat UCLA. They beat Michigan State. They crushed Michigan State. I love Ohio State in the bracket.
And those two teams right there, Michigan State, Michigan, that they beat, they're close to Michigan, beat Michigan State. Really solid front courts.
Very similar.
Ohio State matched up with them, so that's an interesting point for sure.
I agree with that. I like that perspective. The one thing, like I would love to pick Ohio State in this game. Their shot making is fantastic. I'm looking at it right now. They are 17th in offensive efficiency 13th in offensive efficiency per Torvik and 17th in effective field goal percentage. They shoot really, really well. The only thing is, I look at Bruce Thornton, I say he's an absolute amazing clutch shot maker. He always has been, he always will be. But Duke's got a guy on their team named Dame Sarr. Just put Dame Sarr on.
I think Dame Sarr might be your favorite player.
Like, Dame Sarr is so good. All the talk on Duke is Caden Boozer and Cam Boozer. Or not even really Cam Boozer. Caden Boozer, Isaiah Evans, and Malik Brown winning ACC Defensive Player of the Year, which I think is ridiculous. Dame Sarr is the best on-ball defender in the country, in my opinion. So, as good as Bruce Thornton is at creating shots, Dame Sarr is better at eliminating them. So, I would love to pick Ohio State, but I'm not picking Ohio State. I think TCU has a better chance of beating Duke than Ohio State does, but I don't think TCU is going to beat Ohio State. So, I'm taking Duke.
Fair enough. I'm trying to look to see if the times have been released for the games. Not quite sure on that one yet. We're still looking, so we can let you know exactly when these games are going to tip off. But this game between Duke and Ohio State, if it happens, will be on Saturday. St. John's versus Kansas. We said that one was going to be in San Diego, California. That's going to be a weird crowd. I just can't get beyond that. But St. John's and Kansas, wow, what a battle if we get this. Rick Pitino, Bill Self, Darren Peterson versus Rick Pitino, really. Like, what can he do? This is the toughest matchup. I'm a big Rick Pitino guy. I also like my guy, Darren Peterson. This is a tough one, but this is where I take Rick Pitino because he can find a way to shut down Darren Peterson. Shut down is a very strong word. I'm gonna
Yeah,
take
shut
that
down
back.
is strong.
Find a way to make it as difficult as possible on Darren Peterson, where he's either inefficient or he's turning the ball over. I think that's where St. John's wins the game.
All right, you know what I'm going to do on here? I'm going to remove your screen, and I'm going to put mine, because my bracket's different now. So I'm removing your screen. I'm adding mine. I'm going there. Can you see it on there? Just a little quick check. Yeah, we
Yep.
can see it. All right, so in my bracket, I had St. John's losing in the first round, so I got Northern Iowa against Kansas. Again, Kansas is fantastic. You know what I called Darren Peterson at the beginning of the season in preseason? I called him an American hero. That's what I called Darren Peterson, because this Kansas team in preseason looked not very good. Like, they did not bring the right pieces along to the puzzle that you need to build around Darren Peterson. It literally was just him that was saving this Kansas team. And so I called him an American hero. I said he was going to be great. He was going to make a run in March. That's what I said. And then he went down. And he missed all the players era, and he's missed games, and he's been in and out of lineups. And I know it's been frustrating. I will say he is insanely good and probably the most talented player in this draft class. But I think the important part of the story of this season for Kansas was how the rest of this team has been built up around him, how much they've improved in his absence. Melvin Council at times can channel the spirit of Michael Jordan and just go crazy in the fourth quarter, or not the fourth quarter, the second half of games. Trey White is awesome. He's one of the best 3-and-D players in the country. Flory Badunga is hilarious in press conferences and is an awesome front court piece. Bryson Tiller is one of the more under-talked about freshmen in the country. He is a baller down low, too. The rest of this Kansas team is phenomenal. I really think Kansas has grown into a true March contender that can make a run. But they're going up against Northern Iowa, and Northern Iowa is 365th in the country in pace. I'm picking Northern Iowa.
Wow.
I mean, this is my hurry bracket. I am all in on Northern Iowa right now. I watched them win the MVC when I thought Belmont was going to win the MVC, and then I thought Drake was going to win the MVC. Northern Iowa did it at 6 seed. I just love this team so much. The more I look at their resume, the more I look at how they can hang with any front court in the country and how they can straight games and make them close. And if Darren Peterson's off, give me Northern Iowa, man. Give me. I don't even know what their mascot is. I should know that. I don't know what it is. I think they're the Panthers.
That's right.
But give me the Panthers if they are the Panthers. If they're not, just give me Northern Iowa to face Duke against the Elite Eight. How epic would that be? People are all talking about Cinderella's over, or Cinderella's over, Cinderella this, Cinderella that. Northern Iowa's my Cinderella for this region of the bracket.
Awesome. Well, we have a different top side of the bracket. But on the bottom half, Rob and I have the same matchups here in the second round. Louisville, Michigan State, and UCLA, UConn. Louisville, Michigan State, if those two teams win in the first round, will be a game taking place on Saturday. That game will be played in Buffalo, New York. So could be interesting crowds there as well. I don't know why I'm so keen on the crowds, but I think it's a big deal here in the tournament. Louisville, Michigan State from Buffalo, New York. Right away when I see this game, I think Jeremy Fears versus Michael Brown and Ryan Conwell. But then I think about the strong front court of Michigan State. I'm not sure how Louisville can match up with that, but I'm going with the Cardinals. I'm going with Michael Brown and Ryan Conwell to find a way. I think, interestingly enough, Jeremy Fears is going to have more pressure on him than it seems. I think that Michael Brown and Ryan Conwell will have a lot of success, but can they keep Michigan State off the offensive glass? That's the key to this basketball game. And I like my guy number 53 from Louisville. We never found out his name. But
You
I
know
like
what? I don't think we ever should find out his name.
We're not going to find out his name. That's more of a great point. And I think that Louisville can keep him on track a little bit, just enough to help Ryan Conwell and Michael Brown find a way. I'm taking Louisville to advance in this quad.
And you know what? I love that pick from you. I love that you have that opinion. Michigan State's going to win this game. I'm sorry.
Simple as that, guys.
I'm sorry. I would love Louisville too. I think they're more fun than Michigan State. Michigan State's front court is just too good. I cannot see Louisville even grabbing a single. They might not get a single rebound. We might end the game, and Michigan State might have 60 rebounds, and Louisville might have 0. That might happen. And then I think Louisville's guards are great. They are. That's why I picked them to beat a South Florida team that I adore. But at the same time, Michigan State's defense is fantastic. They're going to blitz ball screens. They're going to make Michael Brown uncomfortable. I think Michigan State is going to win this game. And it's funny that I talked ad nauseum about Northern Iowa and Kansas, and I just don't really think this game's going to be close at all. But again, this is my hurry bracket. So I'm picking Michigan State. I'm doing it. Give me the Spartans.
Robert, I have a question.
What's that?
Can we retract picks?
We can retract picks.
I'm retracting my pick, folks. I'm going Michigan State.
All it took was for me to go, Michigan State's winning this game.
And without knowing the Sweet 16 matchup, I'm picking Michigan State to the Elite Eight. I told myself about 2 weeks ago, I saw Michigan State play. I said, I'm going with them. I'm set. And I got to stay with it, folks. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I'm going with it. I'm just gonna say
Hey, we're not perfect. No one's perfect around here. It's okay. We can make mistakes.
And now I'm going back and I want to go pick Louisville again. This is terrible. This is terrible, folks. This is awful. This is what happens for the next 4 days of your life. This is why it's the hurry bracket, and I'm going back to Louisville.
It's just like
The hurry
Full
bracket,
roller
folks.
coaster, man.
We're going Louisville. Moving on to the last second round matchup here in the East region. We've got UCLA UConn. And man.
dude, you know what? You know what I want to do on this game? I don't even want to watch the players. I want to camera on Dan Hurley and I want to camera on Mick Cronin.
That
I just want to watch
is-
the two coaches.
The coaching matchups in this region are incredible.
It's
We've
crazy,
gotten
man.
Diebler. Don't get Diebler. Don't get Diebler. John Shire versus Jake Diebler. Rick Pitino versus Bill Self. Pat Kelsey versus Tom Izzo. Mick Cronin versus Dan Hurley.
Oh my gosh,
This is
man.
incredible.
This is amazing.
I want to take UCLA so bad in this matchup. So bad. I feel like Donovan Dent late in this game could figure it out. Man, I just the bracket is screaming at me to do it, but I'm picking UConn. I cannot have Louisville or UCLA going to the Elite Eight. I just can't do it in my hurry bracket. I want to so bad, folks, but I'm sticking with UConn, and we're gonna have a UConn in the Sweet 16 in my bracket. Up to you, Ralph.
Man,
It is tough.
the East region is so awesome.
The East region is
Like I don't even care about the other region at this point. Give me the East region and then give me Wisconsin and Arkansas, and that's all I want to watch. Like this is gonna be unreal. I'm so glad we're doing this region first because it's so spectacular. I'm picking UCLA in this game.
love it.
I have been out on UConn for so long. I don't know if y'all are watching this podcast and it's this podcast for the first time. If you don't know this, I said what was it way back in like December.
A minute ago.
UConn is the most overrated team in the country. They turn the ball over all the time. Silas Demery does not care about the ball at all, and they're inefficient on offense. Like their defense is much better than their offense this year. No one really knows that. People just look at UConn and say, "Oh, Dan Hurley, I like watching solo balls shooting for him. Give me him to the Elite Eight." UCLA is on fire, and if Donovan Dent is healthy, I agree. I think I trust Donovan Dent shot making late in games more than I trust any of the UConn players. I'll tell you that much. So I know Terrace Reed's going to be a problem. But hey, listen, if you mess up on Terrace Reed, Mick Cronin's just gonna throw you out of the game. It's that simple. He's done that like twice this year. So I'm picking UCLA to win this game, which harkens back to one of your takes about the Big Ten. The Big Ten is I've got two Big Ten teams in the Elite Eight in the East sector. So
I think one of the toughest parts about this and why I almost went back to Michigan State is because of UConn. I think if Michigan State gets matched up with UConn here in the Sweet 16, I like Michigan State a lot in that game. I really do. I think their defense could make it very difficult. And I don't think, why I picked Louisville to beat Michigan State is because of Michael Brown and Ryan Conwell. And then I look at UConn. There's no one like that I can pick on UConn to say they can outperform Michigan State's defense. Who are you going to say? Solo Ball, yeah, he has a beautiful shooting form. He's not a great player. And I'm really going to put my trust in Silas Demery to win a Sweet 16 game. That's tough. However, since I have UConn and Louisville playing the Sweet 16, I cannot pick Louisville going to the Elite Eight. That having a 6 seed go all the way to the Elite Eight, it doesn't matter how much my heart wants to do this. This is the hurry bracket. It's got to be UConn going on to the Elite Eight. What do you think about your Sweet 16 matchup, which is Michigan State UCLA, a fascinating Big Ten battle in the Sweet 16 for Rob?
And you know that's what's so amazing about this is that we have completely different Sweet 16 matchups in this region. That just makes me excited. Like the fact that anything can happen in this region. This is Tom Izzo versus Mick Cronin. Again, don't give me the game. Just give me the coaches. I just want to watch the coaches react. Like watching Mick Cronin on the sideline is so entertaining. It's amazing. I would love to pick UCLA in this game. Michigan State, I think, is one of the more under-talked about teams in the country. I am taking Michigan State to win this game. They have so much consistency. Like what you want for consistency in college basketball is a great point guard and a great front court. This is exactly that. They have a fantastic point guard in Jeremy Fears, despite all the antics. He is fantastic, and their front court is insane. So that is why they can beat anybody, and that's why I think they're going to the Elite Eight to face off against the winner of, in your opinion, Duke versus St. John's. I believe.
Yes. And this is so tough. I am 100% going to pick Michigan State in my head bracket to the Elite Eight. This is the hurry bracket, and that's why I have Louisville going to Sweet 16. And you make me want to take back and go back to Michigan State again, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with what I got. Okay, so UConn's sitting in my Elite Eight here in the East region, and now we've got Duke St. John's in the Sweet 16 game. Wow. Once again, the coaches, Rick Pitino. You don't need another coach, just Rick Pitino facing John Shire. Man, this is something for John Shire. He has got demons to exercise in this tournament. He has had one of the top teams last year, really should have won the national championship, and past years as well, and he's fallen short in the tournament. Now he's got Rick Pitino. I'm not going to talk about it, but the pucker meter. The pucker meter is going to be there.
Pucker
The
meter.
pucker meter for the Blue Devils. But I still like Duke. Zuby Ejiofor versus Cameron Boozer will be an awesome matchup if that's what we get. But I'm sticking with Duke. I like the Blue Devils. They're really good. John Shire is a fantastic coach. I mean, you think about the programs that have had to change between a phenomenal, legendary coach to somebody else. How that's not gone well for some teams. But man, Duke hit it off. They got John Shire to come in right after Mike Krzyzewski and just go right where they were. And it's not, they have gotten better. That's a crazy statement to make. They haven't won a national championship yet, but they've been right there. Duke to the Elite Eight over St. John's for me in the Sweet 16. Rob, you have a fun Sweet 16 matchup, a lot more of a fun hurry matchup, and I'll leave it to you. Let's talk about your Sweet 16 matchup between Duke and Northern Iowa.
Yeah, you could say this is a fun matchup, and it really is because Northern Iowa at this point. Let's imagine that this actually happens. Let's imagine that Northern Iowa beats St. John's in a crazy close game. Rick Pitino's throwing his clipboard on the ground. He's yelling. He's screaming. They lose that one. Then let's imagine that Northern Iowa knocks out Darren Peterson, Bill Self, and Kansas, and then we get a whole week where we can
That's
just
true.
sit there and talk about Northern Iowa. They're going to be the story of the tournament. They're going to be the Cinderella team. And then they go
in one
play-
region.
That's true. That's true. That's very, very true. We're only like not even a fourth of the way done with this. But Northern Iowa would then get hit by an absolute train in the form of Duke. I don't think this game would be very close. It kind of reminds me of the year that St. Peter's went to the Elite Eight and then had to play North Carolina, and then they got absolutely dumped. I don't think this game would be close. I'm picking Duke, which I have a little bit to say about Duke and John Shire too. I think that if you just showed me like the resumes of Duke teams with Mike Krzyzewski, and then he got fired, and then they inserted John Shire, and you're just showing me the resume of those teams and the resume of John Shire teams, I don't think you could notice a difference between, like, you couldn't pinpoint the years that are different. Like, John Shire, they has missed a beat. We might be talking, in 40 years, we might be talking about John Shire in the same breath as Mike Krzyzewski.
I mean, could you think about talking about Duke having an 80-year run of two coaches? Two unbelievable coaches. That is, wow, that would be incredible. It's very possible. Now, folks, the Elite Eight.
The Elite
The
Eight.
Elite Eight in the East region, I don't know where that would be played. And it might not matter. But we've got, for my bracket, Duke and UConn. Wow. John Shire, Dan Hurley. This would be fascinating. And what I like about this matchup is you don't have a guard, really, that you can just trust the ball with. We've talked about Isaiah Evans and his shot making, but I don't know. It's tough when you look at this matchup to say I like a guard to win this basketball game. And that's why I'm taking Cameron Boozer, the future player of the year, whenever that award is announced. We're not quite sure. But
I think it's right before the Final Four. Right before the Final Four.
so I will take Duke, John Shire going back to the Final Four once again. They had Cooper Flag last year. They had so many other guys that went to the NBA. But Cam Boozer, I think he finds a way to get the Blue Devils back to the Final Four over UConn. That's the East region, Rob. I'm going to check where that game will be played. But what about your Elite Eight matchup?
You know what's something that I never really enjoyed as a kid?
What's that?
You know, I loved playing outside. I loved playing sports. I was a big kickball guy, big dodgeball guy. I loved playing foam footballs. A lot of kids that I was friends with, they loved to just sit on the ground, sit on the pavement, not go outside, not scrape their knees, and then just play with chalk. I never liked chalk. Chalk is terrible. I really disliked it. At the same time, I'm picking Duke. Listen, I would love nothing more than to pick Northern Iowa to win this game over Duke, and then make it to the Elite Eight and make it to the Final Four. Duke is so good. Like, it's a problem how good Duke is. And every time I tell myself that, I think back onto the heavenly wisdom that you bestowed on me one year. Before the Duke-Arizona game last year, I said, there's no chance Duke loses this game. Look how good their KenPom is. Look how good their numbers are. They're so amazing. And you said, Robert, they're just 18 to 20-year-old kids. They're not Greek gods. It's very true, but it feels this year like Duke is the team of 13 Greek gods. I'm picking Duke to go to the Final Four over Michigan State. These two teams have played before this year. They played very early in the season. It was sort of towards the end of conference play or non-conference play, I think, if I remember correctly. Duke won the game. Yeah, Duke would win this game.
And that was a really close game, by the way. Look up that box score real quick. But if you think about our two Elite Eight matchups, Duke, UConn, Duke, Michigan State. UConn and Michigan State just don't have the offense to win those games. Duke is elite offensively. We were talking about it in their game last night against Virginia. They switch 1 through 5. They're athletic on every facet of the court. It is so hard to get them in a bad matchup, to get them in bad. Their defense is so locked in. It's one of the things I've talked about with Rob about how much John Shire is just a respectable, incredible coach. Is he takes these 5 stars, he takes these incredible athletes and makes them incredible defenders. They are so locked in on defense. It is, I don't know how he does it. Genuinely, folks, to get dudes that talented to lock in on defense for 40 minutes consistently throughout the year is crazy. And so just looking at those two matchups, I don't see how Duke loses one of those games. And if you look at their entire bracket, you're going to have someone elite offensively to make that happen. If you think about Houston, how they beat Duke last year, they had some incredible shot making. If you look at UConn, solo ball maybe can get hot. I don't think for a full game that's going to happen from them. If you look at Michigan State, Jeremy Fears can play a great game. I don't think they can consistently put up the points to keep up with UConn. Same thing with St. John's. Now, the only team we're going to talk about, we picked our Final Four team from this region in Duke, but the only team that I could see having the shot making to make this happen is the Kansas Jayhawks. I think they might be the only team in this region that can beat Duke, and it's because of Darren Peterson. The American hero. The American hero. There's just something you can't teach, and it's the ability to do what Darren Peterson can do. He just has the elite shot making that you can't coach, and it doesn't matter. There's a reason that he is being the guy I talked about as the 1 or 2 draft pick in this league. It's because it doesn't matter who you put on him, he can get a bucket. And so if there's anyone that can take out Duke in this region, I think it's Kansas. Doesn't mean that I'm picking it. No, I'm just trying to provide you guys a little bit of extra information about this region. Rob, if you're going to pick one team, as we both picked Duke, to take out Duke in this region, obviously you don't think it'll be Michigan State. Do you think any team could do it, and why do you think they could do it?
I'm going to go on a different path here. First of all, I just want to say how crazy it is that I talked about how Duke got absolutely screwed and they got all the hard teams in their region and it's terrible. They should be mad. And then I just waltzed them to the Final Four. Like, I think that's hilarious.
I think it shows the brilliance and just how good this team is that you didn't even think about it. Yes, you can still complain about it, and you can have them waltzing to the Final Four. They are not mutually exclusive, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the team that has the best chance of beating Duke in this tournament is TCU.
Wow.
I do. Not in the tournament. I said the tournament. In the region.
Why?
They are so hot and cold. Like, it's crazy. They could play Duke and lose by 80, and they could play Duke and win. Like they don't rely on 1 or 2 guys to score. They have a really shifty, really fun white point guard who I really enjoy. And I say white point guard not because that matters, but it matters between like how you envision him playing, because it kind of does. I'm not gonna talk about too much. They've got him. They've got this dude David Punch, which is just an awesome name. He's at power forward. I love that guy. And they shoot really well. They can get out in transition. I think that if TCU is playing at their peak, like there are a very few amount of teams in college basketball that when they're playing at their peak can beat anybody. TCU is one of those teams. So
now, they can lose to everybody,
but they could
not say they're going to win a national title.
But they could lose by 40 to Ohio State. Like, they are completely random. Anything can happen with TCU, and I would not be surprised. So realistically, I don't think TCU has a chance of beating Duke, but I do think they have the highest chance of anyone in the bracket beating Duke in the East region, in my opinion.
Fair enough. So with that, folks, we have completed our East region in our hurry bracket. We're going to go through it real quick. We got Duke over Siena, Ohio State over TCU, Duke beating Ohio State. This is my bracket. And we have I have St. John's over Northern Iowa, Kansas over Cal Baptist, St. John's over Kansas, which will give us a Duke-St. John's Sweet 16 matchup, which I would have Duke going to the Elite Eight. On the bottom half, got Louisville over South Florida, Michigan State over North Dakota State, Louisville knocking off Michigan State. That's the biggest upset I have in this region. UCLA over UCF, UConn over Furman, UConn beating UCLA, UConn beating Louisville, and then Duke beating UConn in the Elite Eight. Send them to their second straight Final Four. That's my East region. Rob, your East region of the bracket.
Yes, sir. My East region is a lot more fun than Nazari's East region because I do have Duke winning in Siena and Ohio State and getting the Sweet 16, but I haven't facing off against Northern Iowa in that round. I've got Northern Iowa, the Panthers. I still don't know if they're the Panthers or not. I got to beat St. John's. I got to beat Kansas. I got to get in there against Duke in the Sweet 16. I do have Duke winning, but on the other side of the bracket, I have a lot more chalk than I do at the other, that's the top side. I got Louisville beating South Florida in a game that I think is going to be spectacular, and then I got them losing to Michigan State. Michigan State is one of the most consistent teams in all of college basketball. They're one of the most reliable teams in all of college basketball because of Jeremy Frears and their front court. So I got the Spartans getting past North Dakota State, getting past the Cardinals, and getting to the Sweet 16, where they would play UCLA, one of the hottest teams in the sport, after they take down UCF and UConn to get to that point. I love the Bruins. I love the Spartans. I think they're both playing great basketball. I think they're both really fun. They got fantastic coaches, but I do think the Spartans would win that game before they get trounced by Duke. Not trounced, but beat by Duke in the Elite Eight on the Blue Devils' path to their second straight to Final Four.
Yeah. So looking at your region, specifically the matchups you picked, Rob, what's your favorite matchup and your favorite game to watch if your region were to play out here in the East region?
I have two for you. The first one, Louisville, South Florida, is because I think no matter what, that game is going to be exciting. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of great shot making, a lot of great offense. And I love defensive basketball. I do. We just talked about Duke's defense for a while. But, I mean, high scoring offensive basketball is amazing. So I think that game's going to be great. And then if Northern Iowa were to beat Kansas, that would be fantastic. So those two, I would say those two. What about you?
My top game for this region, if it were to happen, and the way I see it, would be St. John's versus Kansas. I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. Rick Pitino versus Bill Self in the tournament with a chance to go to the Sweet 16. And honestly, I don't know if I see a ton of games being super close in this region. I look at it and I'm just like, Duke, UConn, it will be fun, but I just don't see UConn being able to keep that close or St. John's keeping it close with Duke. I think Ohio State in my region would be the team that gives Duke the most interesting matchup. But, man, UConn and UCLA will be very, very fun. But I think my top game would be St. John's, Kansas.
And that would be a great game. Bill Self and
Absolutely.
Pitino. We almost got it last year. I don't know if you remember.
We did.
When Calipari, Bill Self, and Pitino were in the same region.
Yep.
But now this year we get Dan Hurley and Vic Cronin and Tom Izzo and Pat Kelsey and Bill Self and Rick Pitino and John Shire in the same region. So I think that's a pretty good consolation prize.
Yeah. And I was going to ask this to Rob, who's his biggest dark horse from the East region? But we know who that is, folks. It's Northern Iowa.
Northern Iowa, but also Cal Baptist. I love Cal Baptist.
Fair enough. My dark horse for the East region would be, it's not a very high seed, not a very high seed, but I'll take UCLA as my biggest dark horse because of Donovan Dent. I think he can make it very interesting. I think he will make it very interesting with UConn. And then in the Sweet 16, whether he plays Michigan State, whether he plays Louisville or South Florida, not counting out North Dakota State, but I'm not saying they're going to make it to the Sweet 16. But I think Donovan Dent and UCLA would be my biggest dark horse from that region. Rob, are you good on the East region? Are you ready to move on?
I just want to say one last thing. If South Florida finds a way to beat Louisville, they could beat Michigan State. That's my last thing.
That's Rob's last thing. That is the East region, folks. We hope your guys' brackets are in the East region filled out somewhere close to ours. You know, it doesn't matter. You're probably more correct than we are. Who's to say? But you guys can send in your East region. Let us know which you picked. Moving on to the South region, the bottom left. The winner of this region will play, according to our predictions, Duke in the Final Four.
Yep.
We're going to start off with the top left, the number 1 seed, Florida Gators, the 4th ranked 1 seed, playing either Prairie View or Lehigh.
Maybe Lehigh in the first. Lehigh's going to win that
It's
game.
going to be Lehigh. Sorry, folks. Don't worry about watching the game.
Hey, Prairie View A&M. I'm sorry.
It's going to be Lehigh. Lehigh versus Florida. This one took me a lot to think about, but I'm going to hurry up, and I'm just going to say Florida.
You're sleeping on Lehigh like that? Oh, folks, if you ever watch Dude Perfect Stereotypes, you're going to know what I'm talking about. What if I turn on the TV? Is it Friday or Thursday?
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
In
Friday.
Tampa Bay, in Tampa, Florida.
It's, oh my gosh, that's so bad for Lehigh. But Lehigh could shock the world again and take down Florida. That would make me so happy. Obviously, it would only make me happy because it's a 16 over a 1. No other reason.
No other reason. Just the 16 over.
Yeah, just 16 over the 1. I'm taking Lehigh to beat Prairie View A&M and then to lose to Florida. So yeah, we don't need to spend much time on that one.
And we're going to move on right to our 8-9 matchup. Our second 8-9 matchup. These 8-9 matchups are pretty good. This game could be one of the more boring first 38 minutes of the first round. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Clemson versus Iowa. The final 2 minutes, the score might be 45-45. This will be the most boring 38 minutes. Don't worry about that, folks. The final 2 minutes are going to be incredible.
Come on, man.
This is going to be a close game. This is going to be right there. But I'm taking, once again, the guard. I'm taking Bennett Sturts. The
Dude.
biggest, maybe my biggest upset so far. The 9 over the 8. Here we go. The Iowa Hawkeyes and Bennett Sturts and Ben McCollum going on in the second round. I'll take Iowa.
Dude, there was never a doubt for me, man. It's Bennett Sturts all the way. I love Bennett Sturts so much. The moment that Ben McCollum transferred, or not transferred, but took the Iowa job, the first thing I thought was, please let him bring Bennett Sturts and revitalize this Iowa team. And he has. I just love the fact they're in the tournament. This team has barely any talent. It's basically just Ben McCollum, Bennett Sturts, and a bunch of like Walmart employees. That's what this Iowa team is. But I love them. I love them because I love Bennett Sturts. The coaching is crazy. But this Clemson team also, I think is still very solid. They were one of the most consistent teams in the country from November to February. And in March, they have been all over the place. Like, they've been really hard to bet on, really hard to sort of get a feel for. But I think I was going to win. Like you said, late game, I'm taking Bennett Sturts. It's going to be a boring one, but it's going to be feisty. If you like defensive basketball and you like low-scoring games where buckets really matter,
Yeah.
watch this one, be dialed in for it, and definitely tune in the last seconds to see Bennett Sturts hit a big-time buzzer beater to give the Hawkeyes a win and to really test my self-control as I start to look at that Florida-Iowa matchup, because I really want to pick Iowa, man.
Folks, when you watch Iowa Clemson, I suggest to you to prepare to set an alarm so you're ready, so you wake up for the last 2 minutes. But make sure you set that alarm at about an hour and a half, because this might be the fastest game of the entire tournament. It's going to be unbelievable. If you don't understand what we're saying, and you're just like, what in the world are they saying about Iowa Clemson that I don't understand? These teams play so slow. These teams don't get out in transition. They're not athletic. These are just teams full of gritty guys that just play motion basketball. They move the ball around. They maybe hit a guy in the post. It's just, they're slow playing teams, and it's just going to be a slow
There might be
game.
0 dunks in this game by anybody. That might be
It
what
just
happens.
makes sense. If you know these teams, it just makes sense.
You're going to look up Iowa Clemson highlights on YouTube, and it's going to be a 5-minute video of just the very end of the game. That's all it's going to be. But I'm here for it. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Moving on to the 5-12 and 4-13 matchups of the South region, we've got Vanderbilt coming off a very hot, very incredible run through the SEC tournament all the way to the championship game, facing McNeese, the winners of the Southland, knocked off #1 seed Stephen F. Austin in the championship game. Then in the 4-13, Nebraska versus the Sun Belt champion Troy back in the tournament for the second straight year. We're going to start off with Vanderbilt McNeese. This is where I want to take my first big upset of the tournament. However, I've been going guards all tournament long. I can't just diss off Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles.
He's healthy now. He's healthy.
Yep. So I'm going to take Vanderbilt to knock off McNeese. I think that one could be very fun. The way I see McNeese being able to win this game is, can they turn over those guards? If they can turn over those guards, they'll make it real interesting. I'm going to stick with the Commodores, though.
See, this is why I led with talking about how Vanderbilt got screwed. Is because Vanderbilt is now a 5 seed. I had him as a 3 seed. I do my own bracketology. I had him as a 3 seed. The fact they're a 5 seed, it stinks, not just because they have a 5 next to them instead of a 3. They just played in the SEC tournament. They got all the way to the finals. They crushed Florida. They just went and sat on their couch to watch the selection show. And they think that they're going to get at least a 4. And their reward for playing that well is to get a 5 seed and have to play McNeese. McNeese is so good. They just crushed Stephen F. Austin. Like, absolutely murdered Stephen F. Austin in the championship game. They were really good last year. Like, they won a tournament game last year. They were phenomenal. They're better this year. This McNeese team is better than they were last year. I would love to pick McNeese. I was probably going to pick McNeese against anyone that they played. But unfortunately, I think this is a really bad matchup for McNeese because all they do, like you talked about, all that they want to do is force turnovers. They play so aggressive. They pressure everything. They try and force turnovers to get extra possessions to go get buckets in transition. They're not going to be able to do that against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's backcourt is phenomenal. Like you talked about, Tyler Tanner, Duke Miles. A lot of the struggles we've seen with Vanderbilt was because Duke Miles, debatably their best player, had been injured for like 2 months. And people are like, Vanderbilt, they're not good, man. I mean, they're still not great. You know, they're struggling in SEC play. They're second in Torvik and KenPom in the SEC. They're playing really, really good.
They're ranked 10th in Bar Torvik in general. One of the top teams in the SEC. Florida, but wow, 10th?
No idea why they're a 5 seed. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. So I'm taking Vanderbilt to beat McNeese because I really like Vanderbilt. But I do love McNeese. This is like a 3 seed versus a 10 seed in the first round in my eyes.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the next game in that quadrant, we've got Nebraska facing Troy. And I like Nebraska. I like the way that they play. I think they're one of the more underrated teams. Obviously, they were talked about a lot throughout the year, early in the year when they were undefeated, and then no one really talked about them after they lost that game. But I like the way that they play. I'm taking the Cornhuskers. And Troy, although they're a 13 seed, one of the lower computer metric teams in the tournament, especially rocking through that 12 to 14 line. They're not super high in KenPom. I'm going to take Nebraska. I like the way that they play. They're March built in a way. They don't have a super high tempo. They're not super high in the predictive metrics, but they find ways to get really good shots. They've got front court players that are smart. They've got guards that are gritty. They're not super athletic. They're not incredible shot makers, but they find smart shots. And I like that, especially when you're trying to avoid an upset. I think Nebraska will just find the right shot. They'll get it to the right guy. They will find a matchup that they will just spam. Whether it's one of their two big guys, or whether it's coach son of the coach, Sam Hoiberg, finding a way. I think they'll just find a matchup to really exploit in this game, and I will take Nebraska to move on to play Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the best stories all of college basketball season. If you're unaware, Nebraska has never won a tournament game in the history of Nebraska basketball, which has been around since like the late 1800s. I don't know how they haven't yet, but this is going to be the season. I think it's a really bad matchup for Troy. They had a great run in the Sun Belt. I liked watching them. I don't think Troy's winning this game. I think they're a little overseeded. I had Troy as a bottom 14 seed, and they have them as a 13. So I think Nebraska's going to win this game. I think the thing I like most about Nebraska is their defensive philosophy. What they do is they just focus so much on taking away the paint. They let you shoot contested threes. Like, they will let you do that. They're not super aggressive on there, but they take away the paint. And Troy is not a great shooting team, so I think they're really going to struggle. I'm taking Nebraska to win this game. I love Price Sanford so much. The sole reason I love Price Sanford is because every time he makes a three, I just scream, "The Price is right." I don't know why, but I just really love doing that. So I'm taking Nebraska in this game to get their first ever NCAA tournament win. So shout out Cornhuskers.
We're going to move to the bottom half of the South region. We've got North Carolina facing off against the A10 champion VCU Rams. How about it?
Right.
We're going to see how they do first year head coach after they lost Ryan Odom last year to Virginia. We'll get to Ryan Odom later in this bracket, but VCU comes back, wins another A10 championship last year. They were the 11th seed over the top right region of the tournament. They faced BYU in the first round and fell short. Now they're back again. Now they're playing North Carolina. I'm going to take.
We had some technical difficulties, guys, but we're back because nothing can stop us from making our hurry brackets. Absolutely nothing. I think a bomb could go off about a mile from here, and it would not stop us from making these brackets. I believe my phone died right as we were talking about St. Mary's, Texas A&M. I had St. Mary's, Nazario at Texas A&M. Take it away with the Houston Cougars.
Yeah, so we got Houston taking out Idaho. We both have that in the first round. I have a Texas A&M Houston matchup, which will take place in Oklahoma City. Both of those fan bases, transitioning from Texas all the way up to Oklahoma City for that game. That could be absolutely fascinating. But Houston's defense just too strong for Texas A&M, and buckyball. I think Houston will just absolutely suffocate them. I don't think Texas A&M's defense is good enough to hold down Houston's offense to keep them in that game. I'm taking Houston to the Sweet 16.
I like that. I agree with a lot of what you said there. I got Houston going up against St. Mary's. Very different matchup, Houston St. Mary's, than Houston Texas A&M, obviously, because St. Mary's and A&M are completely different teams. But for this game, I think something that's really interesting to note for Houston, they had a lot of depth in their front court last year. I don't see as much depth in terms of rebounding as they had last year. So I think that might be something that can bite them later in the tournament. Not in this game. I don't think St. Mary's has a chance against Houston. But that's my thing with Houston. I think they're great. Their offense is much improved from where it was last year. Or not much improved, but improved. I love Kingston Flemings. I love Emmanuel Sharp. They're fantastic. And I love JoJo Tugler and Chris Senac. But the depth in their front court, I think, is something that has hurt them this year, and that might continue to hurt them throughout the rest of the tournament. But I am picking them to go to the Sweet 16 and win against St. Mary's.
Yeah. Our next matchup here in the South region,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find that word right there, is I have VCU and Illinois here in the second round. I'm just going to go with Illinois. I really like this team, and you'll see how much I like them coming up shortly. But I'm going to take Illinois over VCU.
I remember when you were talking about how the Big Ten got all the great draws. This is another great example of it. Illinois is very up and down this year. Everyone loves them because of their offense, and rightfully so. Their offense is spectacular. They have got great shot making. They have one of the best freshmen in the country in Keaton Wagler. I love Keaton Wagler. I'm a big fan of just give the ball to Keaton and let him make plays. But they also got Kylan Boswell back, who was their point guard at the beginning of the year. He was injured for a long time. They just got him back recently. I think that could give them a boost for sure. And then they have such a consistent front court with guys like Zvonimir Ivicic, who's not even the best of Ivicic on their team because they have his older brother, Tomislav Ivicic. And then they got Stojakovic, they got Mirkovic, they got Petrovic. Like you said, a lot of bitches. But I think this Illinois team, while they're inconsistent, they can't guard very well. They don't put a lot of effort in on defense. They got a very good draw here with getting to play Penn in the first round. I don't think Penn's very good. And then I think either VCU or North Carolina, I would be very confident in Illinois' offense overwhelming that team, especially with their front courts. So I am taking Illinois to win against North Carolina
which would set up an awesome matchup, by the way,
Mhm.
between Illinois and Houston in the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. That would be incredible.
Yeah. And so we're going to move on to the top quadrant here. I believe we both have Florida, Iowa, Vanderbilt, and Nebraska
Mhm.
here in our second round matchups. Man, the desire to pick Iowa is just it's so high, but there's just no way. I'm sorry, but they just don't have the talent, folks. They don't have the front court to play against Florida. It's just not there. There's certain things you have to pull off an upset, and some front court, just anything to stand up to a front court has to be there. It's just not there for Iowa. Florida's front court is just way too good. It's way too deep. It's way too deep for Iowa. Even if Iowa wants to turn this into a guard spread out game, it's just not there inside. Florida will just be able to overwhelm them. I don't see how they can keep up with it, and so I'm picking Florida.
Yeah, I want to pick Iowa so bad in this game. I love the Hawkeyes with all my heart, my soul. This team is awesome. But like you said, I cannot think of a world that they win this game in. But I do pride myself in a lot of things. I pride myself in my ability to watch college basketball. I say I'm really good at watching college basketball.
He's really good at it.
I'm really good at making brackets, like writing them down. You were able to see that this afternoon.
Making them, he's really good at it.
And making them, I'm pretty good at that. I'm really good at playing Mario Super Sluggers. Put me on the sticks. I'll beat almost anybody watching this video. I guarantee it. One thing that I'm not very good about is being knowledgeable about elite college coaching. I don't really know how some coaches do it.
He means X's and O's. He means tactics, folks.
Yep, the X's
really
and O's and the tactics.
nitty-gritty.
I don't really get into that. That's not my ball game. But someone that I trust to really understand that ball game, to really get in it and really figure out a way to slow this Florida team down is Ben McCollum. So I'm saying there is no way for me to ever be able to fit it into my mind about how Iowa can win this game. But Ben McCollum can fit that into his mind. And I think that there is a chance that Iowa wins, not because of the brilliance of me or because of the brilliance of Bennett Sturts, but because of the brilliance of Ben McCollum. That being said, I still think Florida's going to win this game because I can't put that into words. I can't explain to you what that means or what that's going to look like. I'm just saying it's possible. But Florida is just so good, and they're so consistent because of their front court. So I'm taking the Gators.
Yeah. And now we have our final South Region round of 32 game between Vanderbilt and Nebraska. And folks, I'm going to let you in on one of my theories. One of my theories for March Madness picking. And I'm not a fan of teams that go on runs in the conference tournament games. I'm not a big fan of it. And that's why I'm looking at Vanderbilt and I'm like, I have a little bit of hesitancy with it. Everyone's going to jump on their bandwagon. They're going to say, wow, they beat Florida. Who in the world has beaten Florida? No one's beaten them in months. Vanderbilt did it. And I'm going with the Cornhuskers, man. I'm not a big fan of taking a team that's really hot in the conference tournament. It's such a small sample size. It's such a random thing, but so many people want to jump on it and think it's like this huge overarching aspect that matters so much. I like Nebraska, and I also like this matchup for them. I think this will be a really interesting game. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I think Nebraska can slow it down enough where the execution on a half-court set matters so much that Nebraska will be able to outplay them in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know about the talent discrepancy between these two teams. I think Vanderbilt has it, but I think Nebraska, I just like the way that they're able to slow down, run their sets, and get really good shots. And so that's why I'm taking Nebraska in this game because of the tempo. And I originally was looking at this and I was like, oh, this will be my upset pick of the second round for this region. But because of the way that the seeding went, it's Nebraska as the favorite. But I feel like Vanderbilt will be picked much more out of this matchup right here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I also agree with you on the conference championship thing. But I think this is a very unique circumstance. I believe that Vanderbilt's a fantastic team. I believe that they're going to march hot. I believe they're going to march healthy, fully healthy. This is a Vanderbilt team that's better than that we've seen it all throughout SEC play. And remember how good they were in non-con when they were healthy? They were undefeated. Didn't lose a single game in the non-conference, got into conference play, was injured, so they really struggled. Then they were healthy. They beat Tennessee on the road. They crushed Florida. They beat Arkansas to win the SEC championship. I think this Vanderbilt team is fantastic. Or Arkansas didn't win the game. That's my bad. I've watched way too much college basketball over the past. No, I've watched a fair amount of college basketball. The amount of college basketball you should watch. This Vanderbilt team is deserving of a 3 seed. They should be playing a 6 seed in this round and should have a much easier path to the Sweet 16. But they're not. They're playing Nebraska. And Nebraska's really good. I really like watching Nebraska. I think Nebraska is gonna really make things difficult for the interior of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not a great rebounding team. I think Nebraska is gonna dominate boards. It's a good double there for whoever that was. We're watching the World Baseball Classic right now as we're doing this. But I'm taking Nebraska to win this game. I think it's a great story, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I love the set pieces they draw up. And with Nebraska, too, they don't rely on one guy to get hot and win games.
Exactly.
Sam Hoiberg can get hot. Price Sanford can get hot. Jamarcus Lawrence can get hot. Even Rank Mask can get hot. So I love the coaching and the duality and the well-roundedness of the Nebraska Cornhuskers to find their way to the Sweet 16.
And now we've got a great South Region Sweet 16, which will be taking place in Houston, Texas. I did not-
Turn
folks,
up, H-Town.
Folks, I did not know that they were playing in the South Region in Houston, Texas. And that makes me think that Houston is in a perfectly good spot. They get a home game.
Come on,
The Sweet
Cougs.
16 and Elite 8. I'm still taking Illinois. I
No,
love Illinois.
no. man.
I rock with Illinois. Brad Underwood, give me the fellas from Illinois. Their offense is awesome, and I'm sticking with it. And this is a fun matchup. Illinois-Houston. In Houston is going to be absolutely amazing. Offense versus defense. What wins championships?
Defense, baby,
Usually
defense.
But Illinois wins this one game. Offense finds a way. Wow, this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I hope this matchup happens. I really don't see how it doesn't happen, Rob. Honestly, if we're looking at this,
Oh, yeah,
North
no,
Carolina beats
100%.
TCU. I don't see how any of them beats Illinois, and St. Mary's A&M. I don't see how either of them really get close to Houston. I think this is both really easily a cakewalk to the Sweet 16. While I can make arguments on the other side of the region, I can't make an argument there on the bottom half.
I agree. And this just speaks to how amazing the East region is, by the way. I mean, that region, an argument can be made anywhere with any of the teams. Houston, in this scenario, in my opinion, would be waltzing their way to the Elite Eight. They would be getting a week off, and they would be playing against Illinois, or waltzing to the Sweet 16, rather. They would play Illinois. They'd be at home. I'm taking Houston to win this game. Illinois, I love teams that have as good of an offense as Illinois. They're really fun to watch, and they play great basketball, and it's just refreshing from a basketball perspective to watch the ball movement and the shot making and the skills and the coaching this Illinois Illini offense has.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust teams that don't guard,
Yeah.
and they don't guard consistently. You know what the program is that guards the most consistently in all of college basketball?
Houston.
It's the Houston Cougars.
Yep.
And that's what wins them these games. That's why they can fight back against teams like Duke, teams like Arizona, and also sustain leads against really good offenses. So if any team can slow Illinois down, it's probably Duke. Outside of that, it might be Houston. So I am taking the Cougars to win at home against the Illinois Illini and make the Elite Eight.
So one of our big differentiators in this region, I have Illinois going to the Elite Eight. Rob has Houston. Now, Sweet 16, the other side happening in Houston will be, it's weird saying Houston's in the region and the games are happening in Houston. That's crazy that they did this. But we've got Nebraska versus Florida here in the Sweet 16. Rob, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Cornhuskers.
Let's go,
Already
baby.
Elite Eights.
Hey, you know what?
Already
I was going to do the exact same thing.
Do the
I was
same
going to
thing.
take Nebraska.
Nebraska knocking off Florida in the Sweet 16. This is electric. Not only are they going to make the Elite Eight, but they never won a game in the tournament. They're one away from not winning a game in the tournament to their first Elite Eight run in the same year. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I'm going to go back to the same point I made about Nebraska in the Vanderbilt game, is that they're just going to find good shots. I know this Florida's defense has been, I think, maybe over-exaggerated in how good it is. I don't know if I trust Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan to guard, not only their offense, but to guard late in March, late in games. And that's why I think Nebraska can get some really good shots. And I think this Nebraska front court can really challenge Chinulu, Condon, and Thomas Houck. Thomas Houck, I think, will have a good game. But I think that Nebraska's offense can find a way with their big guys on the inside to make it challenging. And you know what's really important? They can spread them out. We've seen Nebraska's big man just take it out. Oh, just put it up. Bucket from downtown. They can spread them out, and I think that will give Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan a lot of challenges there on the outside on the perimeter defending.
I am so excited you picked Nebraska because I thought I was going to pick Nebraska after you picked Florida, and you were going to say I was a crazy person. And now we're writing it together, and I love that. But I will say the reason I think Nebraska is going to win this game is because I don't think Florida is going to be able to score at a consistent rate whatsoever. I just talked about how Nebraska, what they do is they force you outside of the paint. They say you're not going to get any easy buckets inside. You're going to have to get them all from the outside.
I love that.
That hurts Florida so much.
I agree. That's a great matchup discrepancy right there.
Like, all that Florida wants to do is get in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have elite shot making on the outside. Occasionally, Xavier Lee will hit a cool step back three. Occasionally, Boogie Flan will make us remember why he was a McDonald's All-American. But it's not consistent, and it's not at a level of which I think they can score at an elite level against Nebraska in the Sweet 16.
One of my favorite Bart Torvik stats that adds to your point, 3-point rate. Nebraska, 3-point rate defense, 361st in the country. They don't allow teams to shoot 3-pointers. That's
No, that means they
crazy.
let them shoot.
They let them shoot 3-pointers. You're exactly right. That goes with your point.
Mhm.
They make teams shoot 3-pointers, which is exactly what we want when we're playing against Florida.
Because Florida can't shoot them very consistently. They haven't been able to all year. That's been my knock on them since day one of the season.
They are 324th in 3-point percentage, sitting at 30.8% from 3-point range. So this is a really cool matchup that we've got
And
right there.
no one is going to tell you that nugget because everyone is so in on Florida. Everyone is so in on the back-to-back. It's just, I am so excited about this game. If this happens, give me Nebraska 100% to win this game. The one thing I'm worried about, like we're saying, yeah, Florida doesn't shoot well from 3. Nebraska lets you shoot from 3. What happens when Florida is cold from 3, but they're getting every single offensive rebound, so it doesn't matter? That's the one thing I'm concerned about
100%.
because Rank Mast is the 5 for Nebraska. He's tall, he's big, he's experienced. He is going to have to play the best game of his life
100%.
to keep Condon and Chinulu and Handlockton and all those guys off the boards because, yes, what we're saying is true. Florida's probably going to go like 3 for 20 in this game from 3. But is it going to matter?
Yeah, great point.
So that's the matchup that I'm looking at. But yeah, Nebraska, I would love them in the Elite Eight. That's what I got.
So we've got Nebraska, Houston in the Elite Eight for Rob. I've got Nebraska versus Illinois. I am going to predict right now that both of us are going to have Nebraska losing in the Elite Eight after their incredible Sweet 16 run. I'm going to take Illinois all the way to the Final Four, taking a 3 seed to the Final Four. Rob, there's no more chalk over here for me. I got a 3 seed going to the Final Four. What about you in your Elite Eight matchup?
You know, I love this Nebraska team. I really do. We've talked about them ad nauseum already in this region. They're fantastic. It's a great story. If they were to make the Final Four, it would probably be the best story of the year. Maybe Miami, Ohio's 31-0, perfect regular season would be, but it would be up there with that. But this is in Houston. Again, Nebraska they let you shoot 3s. You don't want to let Emmanuel Sharp shoot, man. You don't want to let Kingston Fleming shoot. You really don't want to. I think Houston would win this game again at home. I didn't realize they were at home until you brought that up. That's crazy. That they are at home. So I'm taking Houston to make the Final Four. Back-to-back Final Fours, which would set up a rematch of last year's Final Four with Duke and Houston. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
If my Elite Eight were to happen between Illinois and Nebraska, we've seen this game before back in, let's see when this game was.
We've also
February 1st.
And we saw it. They played twice. They played in late December, and Nebraska won on a near buzzer beater. It was awesome.
And then
So they
Illinois
split.
came back, beat Nebraska in Nebraska Stadium with a 78-69 victory. So we could see a part 3 of the Illinois versus Nebraska rivalry in my bracket. However, Rob has Houston. So we have our Final Four on the left side filled out. Both of us have Duke. I have Duke facing Illinois. Rob has Duke facing Houston. We are going to move on to the right side of the bracket. Folks, if you're still watching, you are an incredible person. We are an hour and 38 minutes in, and we are just hitting the right side of the bracket. This is what you come here to watch. All right, setting up the West region, folks. We've got Arizona, Long Island, Villanova, Utah State. Rob, let's just not take a long time here. We both got Arizona going to the Sweet 16. There's no reason to overthink it.
You know,
I think both of us are going to also take Utah State to win in the second round. I think both of us are going to do the same thing. Rob, am I wrong?
You know, I got a great friend downstairs right now named Nick Duke. We're in Orlando, Florida, by the way, for those that don't know. And Nick Duke is from the great state of New Jersey. So I need to give him a shout out here because Long Island is in the tournament. And a lot of people out there think that if you're a 16 seed in the tournament and you lose in the first round, that you're a disgrace, that you had a bad season, that you didn't accomplish anything. This is a great moment for Long Island. The fact that they're in the tournament, it's been a great year for them. Just wanted to give both Long Island and Nick Duke a shout out. But I do think Arizona, yeah, they're going to win this game. And then Utah State, Villanova's terrible. They're garbage. I would take their team and their coach and throw them in the garbage can right now. They can't win against big teams. They got smoked by St. John's twice, got smoked by UConn twice. Their only good win was against a Wisconsin team before they remembered how to play basketball. I just don't think there's a chance. Utah State is phenomenal. They got great shot making, and I think Villanova shouldn't have even been in the tournament. So I'm taking Utah State, the Aggies, the best Aggies in the tournament, to get a big-time win over one of the Big East members. I am really fading the Big East so far, by the way. I didn't even notice that. I got Villanova losing in the first round. I got St. John's losing in the first round. And I got UConn losing in the second round.
And that might not be a bad strategy. We'll see what happens, folks. And now, I think, personally, this is the most fun 5-12, 4-13 matchups of the entire tournament and in the second round. This is amazing. This is going to be incredible. We've got Wisconsin versus High Point, Arkansas versus Hawaii. Wow, this is going to be absolutely exceptional. I'm going to go real quick here because I know you will have a lot to say about High Point and Hawaii. But I'm going to take Wisconsin and Arkansas just because I want to see them play in the second round. I want to see Arkansas and Wisconsin in the second round. So I'm going to go real quick and take those two teams. Rob, you can go one by one because I know you're going to have a lot to say about High Point.
I do. High Point and Wisconsin. We'll start with High Point. High Point is a very fascinating team. They were talked about a lot last year, and rightfully so. It was their first year in the tournament. They were a 12 seed. No, they were 13 seed, going up against Purdue, going up against the Big Ten team, just like they are this year. And that High Point team was good. They made a lot of shots. They were fun. This team that's this year, this High Points team is much better than last year's team, in my opinion. They're much improved. They do a lot more specifically what they want to do than they did last year. Like last year, they were kind of all over the place. They were a good shooting team, but they weren't great. They were good at forcing turnovers, but they weren't great. They are great, like fantastic, top 5 in the country at forcing turnovers and not turning the ball over. They really, really like the ball. That's what the point I'm trying to make. They're a lot of fun. I think they've had a great season. The Big South was much better than what people gave it credit for this year, and they rolled through not only the Big South regular season, but the Big South Conference Championship tournament. They're a great team. That being said, I do think this is a really bad matchup for them, which is really unfortunate. As I said, what they do a lot, like their success is predicated a lot on forcing turnovers. Wisconsin does not turn the ball over. Nick Boyd and John Blackwell might be the best backcourt in the entire country. They are so good. They are playing on fire right now. And if they are on, if they're hot and they're feeling it, there's not a single defense in the entire country. I don't care if it's Michigan. I don't care if it's Duke. I don't care if it's Arizona, Florida, anybody. Not a single defense in the country can slow down Wisconsin when they are playing at their peak. And I think they're going to be playing at their peak at the right time against High Point. I think that Wisconsin's going to win. I think they're third in Torvik. I just looked at it. They're third in Torvik in turnover rate offensively. They don't turn the ball over. And High Point is going to be trying to turn them over all game long. It's not going to happen. Unfortunately, for High Point, I have them losing in the first round. But boy, I love this Wisconsin team. They are so awesome. They were on the bubble like a month and a half ago. And I was talking about they were my favorite bubble team. They're a 5 seed. Like their finish to the season was unreal. They had so many big wins. They've won at Michigan. They've beaten Illinois. They've beaten Michigan State. They nearly beat Michigan again in the conference tournament. They are so much fun to watch. John Blackwell and Nick Boyd are two of my favorite players in all of college basketball. I really hope this Wisconsin team makes a run. I have them winning against High Point in the first round because I wish High Point was playing Wisconsin. I really wish they were playing somebody else because they're a really fun team. This is just a bad matchup for them. So give me the Badgers. And then with the other game, with Arkansas and Hawaii, I think Hawaii is very overseeded. I had them as a 14. I don't think they're very good. They're not the best team in the Big West. UC Irvine is. They did beat UC Irvine to make the tournament, so big time respect for Hawaii. But I'm taking Arkansas in this game. As good as the team could be out of a mid-major conference, it is hard when you're going up against like 10 5-stars. And that is what Arkansas has. They're so athletic. They have unbelievable shot making with Darius Acuff and with Malik Thomas. And they just have too many dudes, really. I mean, Billy Wagner is such a stud. He's just so much fun to watch out there. Billy Richmond, DJ Wagner, Carter Knox, they are loaded with talent. I would be shocked if Hawaii pulls that one off, which would give us that coveted Wisconsin-Arkansas game in the second round, man. That would be pure cinema. I would just love to watch every moment of that game. It would be incredible.
Before we get to that game, we've got to talk about the bottom half of the West region. And we've got BYU facing... This is the first time we've had to talk about a first 4 game, Rob, in this entire episode.
Well, I mean, we flew right past Lehigh and Prairie View A&M. That's a big one, man. It's a big one.
Forgot about that. But we will have Texas and NC State playing in the first 4. Let me check real quick when that game is, folks. That will be for the 11 seed. That game is on Tuesday, 9:15. We have game times coming out. 9:15, Texas versus NC State. NC State, a 1.5-point favorite in that game. Folks, we have full game times.
Oh my gosh, we have full game times
out. We will get to that slowly as we go through our bracket. But BYU facing the winner of Texas and NC State. Wow, this is going to be interesting, Rob. BYU, we've talked about them through the podcast, through this year, or through the season. We haven't talked about them on this podcast specifically. They've got one of the best players in the country in AJ Debinsa. They're going to have a tough time, I think, with either of these teams, whether it be Texas or NC State. I think both these teams could give the Cougars trouble, but I just cannot go away from AJ Debinsa. I am going to stick with him. I trust him. I know that BYU as a team, they don't run very efficient offense. They don't run much offense at all. They basically hand the ball to Debinsa and then say, go figure it out. And that's why I'm going to take Debinsa. I'm going to take AJ Debinsa and the Fighting BYU Cougars to advance the second round.
Here's what I think BYU's mindset is right now. I think BYU is hoping and praying and putting all of their chips into Texas beating NC State. I think BYU would love to play Texas. Texas is phenomenal offensively, and they are really, really not great at all defensively. That is exactly what BYU is.
I like that.
And I don't think Texas can out BYU because Texas doesn't have AJ DeBancy. They don't have Rob Wright. So I think BYU would smoke Texas. But I don't think Texas is beating NC State. NC State is one of my favorite teams in the country. Ever since Darian Williams committed to NC State in the summer, I loved NC State. They were my dark horse Final Four team at the beginning of the year. And they looked like they were going to be an 8 seed, maybe a 7 seed, possibly a 9 seed. They have had not a great finish to the season. They're cold. They've really been struggling. They're sort of limping into the play-in game against Texas. But I'm taking NC State. Their shot making is incredible. I love Darian Williams late in games. Quadir Copeland is so consistent as a point guard. He's a great passer. He's a great athlete. And then they have great shot makers around those guys too. So I really like NC State to beat Texas. And then also to turn that around, play team basketball, get the ball to Darian Williams when they need to, and beat BYU to make it to the second round. I love NC State. Like I just said, they're phenomenal to watch. They're a great offensive team. Give me the Wolfpack over the Cougars to make it to the second round.
Yeah, so with the game times coming out, we're going to mention this. It's all Eastern time here. BYU facing the winner of Texas NC State will be Thursday night at 7:25 p.m. out there in Portland, Oregon. That will be followed by Gonzaga and Kennesaw State. That is basically, folks, a home game for Gonzaga out there in Oregon, not very far from Spokane, Washington. I'm going to stick with Gonzaga, and it's just tough seeing any low seed make a big upset, but it's always tough seeing those. But I'm going to stick with Gonzaga playing that home game against Kennesaw State.
I agree. I have a phenomenal cousin who's a unbelievable relieving pitcher that pitches at Kennesaw State. He's awesome. I would pick him until stars ended. But this is not baseball. This is basketball. Gonzaga is going to win this game by 30. Unfortunately, it's in Portland, Oregon. Is that what you said? That's just crazy. Gonzaga is going to pack that place out. There's not going to be a single Kennesaw State fan within miles. I'm taking Gonzaga to win that game. Their front court's just too good. So Bulldogs versus Wolfpack in the second round, in my opinion. It's going to be a fun one.
Opinion. Yes. And now our final round of 64 games for the West region. We've got Miami facing Missouri, Purdue facing Queens, and this is ACC versus SEC for this game between the Hurricanes and the Tigers. I'm going to take the Missouri Tigers from the SEC. I believe his name is Mark
Mitchell.
Thank you. I knew I was messing up his last name there. Mark Mitchell. I'm going to take him over the Hurricanes. I think he's just going to get it done. He played very, very well in the SEC tournament against Kentucky. That was an awesome game. He was dialed in. I'm going to take him to take out the Canes.
And I don't mind that. Missouri can play at a phenomenal level. Mark Mitchell, like you said, dominated that Kentucky game. Pretty much single-handedly willed Missouri to a win over the very talented Wildcats. They've also beaten Florida this year. So Missouri can ball. Like, they really, really can. But I think that one of the most underrated point guards in all of college basketball is Trey Donaldson. He is fantastic. He's clutch. He's a great shot-making one, and he's a good passer too. So I'm going with Trey Donaldson. I'm going with first-year coach Jay Lucas, who took Miami from a very, very weird spot to a 7 seed in his first year. I think that's so impressive what Jay Lucas has done. So I'm taking the Hurricanes.
Miami reminds me a lot of what Louisville was last year in the first year under Pat Kelsey. He obviously had Chucky Hepburn as his point guard. He was his transfer that he brought in to really stabilize things. Now for Miami, they brought Trey Donaldson in for Jay Lucas, his stabilizing force from Michigan. And I want to ask you an interesting question here before we finish out this region.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have Michigan, if you're the Michigan Wolverines going for the national title, Elliot Cadeau or Trey Donaldson, seeing where those two players are at right now? Obviously, Donaldson left. Some would say because he got pushed out because they knew they were bringing Cadeau in.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you rather have?
That's a great question. I think they're very different players. I think for the style that Michigan plays, I would rather have Elliot Cadeau because they love to get out and fast breaks. They're really athletic. They like to out-athleticism people. And I think Elliot Cadeau is a better passer than Trey Donaldson is. So I think he facilitates things better. But if I'm Miami in the way they run their team, I would rather have Trey Donaldson than Elliot Cadeau because Trey Donaldson is more versatile offensively. But Elliot Cadeau fits Michigan's needs. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. Completely fair enough. One thing I'm going to add to the Miami versus Missouri game before we go on to the Purdue matchup. This game is being played in St. Louis, Missouri, folks.
Oh,
Missouri's
wow.
home game against Miami in the first round. That will be played on Friday night at 10 p.m. Man, that Friday night in Missouri. Those folks, what do they have to do? Nothing else. There's nothing in Missouri, folks. They're going to be at the game. Watching them play Miami. That's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, the 2 versus 15 matchup. Queens versus Purdue in St. Louis, Missouri. As I said, that's the 7:35 matchup on Friday night. Purdue, the Big Ten champions. I'll take Purdue and the Boilermakers getting it done over Queens.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Purdue as well. I would love to pick Queens here just because I love Queens. I thought it was Queens in New York for a while until I realized they're Queens in like North Carolina,
Yeah.
which is not as exciting. Oh, something happened? Something must have happened in the. We're watching the USA Dominican game as we're doing this. I'm taking Purdue. Offensively, they're so consistent with what Braden Smith does and Fletcher Loyer and everything. That's what makes them so good in March. That's what makes them so unbeatable in the first couple rounds. I mean, I would be shocked who just went deep.
Gunnar Henderson.
Gunnar Henderson, baby! Oh, we do love America around here. So I am taking Purdue to beat Queens. I'm not going to waste too much time on it. The Boilermakers, that experience, man, it definitely means something.
Back up to the top of the West region. I already had to put it in, folks. Arizona beating Utah State. Going to Sweet 16. I'm not going to talk about it much. Rob?
Not much to discuss here. I do really like Utah State. I liked watching them play this year. They haven't faced anything like Arizona. Give me the Wildcats.
This game will be played in San Diego, California on Sunday. We don't have the Saturday or Sunday times, of course. I have no idea, folks, when they announce those. We'll see what happens. But that game in San Diego. So that could be an interesting crowd matchup. Arizona and Utah. Who knows? We'll go to San Diego for that. That'll be interesting. But both of us taking Arizona in that matchup. Moving on.
Here
to the
we
best
go.
game, maybe the best game of the entire weekend, if we get it. Wisconsin versus Arkansas. Folks, if you haven't been following those two teams and you're like, why are these two guys so excited about a 5 versus 4 matchup? Folks, but hammer the over. Hammer the
Definitely
over.
hammer it.
It might be 190 points, and it will not matter because
Oh,
these teams only care about offense, and they are elite at it. Rob talked about Wisconsin, John Blackwell. They got that guy Nick Boyd. They can shoot it, man. Arkansas's got Darius Acuff. They got Billy Richmond. They got Malik Thomas. These dudes can score out the wazoo. There is elite shot making on these teams. And Rob, I'm going to make my pick.
go for it.
I'm going to go with Darius Acuff and Arkansas and John Calipari knocking off Wisconsin in maybe the best game of the entire tournament. This game is going to be exceptional. I'm going to figure out where it's at, what time, what day, while you make your pick.
You know, I feel so bad picking against either of these teams. I love both of these teams so much. This might be the two best backcourts.
Your heart bracket is
country.
going to have a just awful time picking this game.
Like, this is already hard enough for my head bracket. And I'm doing hurry right now. This is hard enough for my hurry bracket because I would love to pick either of these teams to make it to the Sweet 16. The fact that either Wisconsin or Arkansas isn't making the Sweet 16 is a crime. But the fact that we have this game is a blessing. It really is. It's just going to be great basketball. Neither of these teams turn the ball over. They have elite shot making. They don't really have very consistent front courts. I just can't wait to watch it. At the end of the day, I am taking the fast break nature of the Arkansas offense to be able to generate more offense than Wisconsin and win that game. But at the same time, I talk about how Nick Boyd and John Blackwell can go crazy against some of the best defenses in college basketball. Arkansas's defense is not very good at all. So Nick Boyd and John Blackwell are probably going to go nuts in this game. And by nuts, I mean they're probably both going to drop over 30 points. That would not shock me at all. But I could see Darius Acuff dropping 50 in this game. I could see Malik Thomas going crazy and putting up 25 points on like 6 for 9 shooting from 3. I could see Billy Richmond getting out in transition and yamming on people. I could see Javon Brazil catching lobs all night long. So I would love to pick Wisconsin. They're one of my favorite teams in college basketball. But unfortunately for the Badgers, I'm going with the Razorbacks with their talents that they have to win that game against Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be just one of the best matchups that we maybe have ever seen in college basketball.
It might be.
But
it might
this game
be.
is going to be so much fun. It's going to be played in Portland, Oregon, which might be the only downside of this game. Arkansas and Wisconsin getting all the way to Portland, Oregon for this game. That's going to be tough for those fans. I hope they make it. That'll be a Saturday game as long as one of those teams or either of those teams gets beat in the first round, which is very possible. But those games will be played in Portland, Oregon, which will set up for Rob and I. We have Arizona and Arkansas matching up in the Sweet 16. The other side of the West region, we've got BYU Gonzaga, Missouri Purdue. I am going to take the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I think on the front court, Gonzaga is just too powerful. I think Graham Ike will just have a day. I think it's going to be real tough for BYU to get stops in that game. So I'm going to take the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
I agree. I think if Gonzaga was playing BYU, I would 100% take BYU to win that game very easily. I was so in on BYU in the preseason. I loved Richie Saunders so much. Richie Saunders got hurt. Kevin Young has just been doing absolutely nothing on offense, and then they don't play defense. Like, what are they doing in practice? Just watching AJ DeBanza play one-on-one against their guys? Is that just what they do? I don't understand it. But that's why I had BYU losing in the first round to NC State. And I want to pick NC State so badly to beat Gonzaga. I don't trust Gonzaga's guards at all. Like, Mario St. Superi is good. Brandon Smith is good. They are not great. And I turn around with NC State and I see Quadir Copeland and I see Trey Holloman and I see Terrence Arsenault and I see guys that have March experience under a coach like Will Wade who has March experience with a front court bell cow like Darian Williams who has March experience. I'm picking NC State to win this game. I know their front court isn't great. I know Gonzaga is probably going to suffocate them in this game. But this is such a hurry bracket pick. Like for my head bracket, I'll think about it and pick Gonzaga. But this is my hurry bracket. I'm taking NC State. I think that they're fun. Their offense is fantastic. Wolfpack to the Sweet 16.
This game will likely be played late on Saturday night. These are late Thursday night games being played in Portland, Oregon. So I'm guessing since it's an out west game, it will be late Saturday night.
Most likely.
And I believe USA just hit a home run. But Gonzaga will have a home game in this late on Saturday night against either BYU or the winner of Texas and NC State in our brackets. But I'm taking Gonzaga over BYU. Now, Missouri versus Purdue, the other round of 32 game in the West region, the final round of 32 game in the West region of our brackets. And I'm going to do it, Rob. I'm going to keep with the theory. I am taking the Missouri Tigers to knock off Purdue, the SEC going to the Sweet 16, taking out the Big Ten champions. I told you folks at the beginning, the theory. I don't like teams that have great runs in the conference tournaments, especially the Big Ten. The Big Ten is notorious for having its conference championship winner fall out early in the bracket, and I'm going to do that with Purdue. I know folks are going to be like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Purdue has so much experience in the tournament, and I don't know. It's got to happen somewhere, and I'm taking the Missouri Tigers to do it.
I think that's some good reason in there. I don't mind it. I will say, I think the way that Purdue is structured, I think they will obviously struggle with some of the top teams in the bracket. Now, I don't think they're one of the top 8 teams in terms of title contenders in the country. I know a lot of people disagree with that because of their experience, because we've seen this team play so well in so many big moments. But I don't think they're one of the top teams in the country. That being said, I think they are head and shoulders better than both Miami, than Missouri, and than Queens. So I am taking Purdue to win this game based on experience, based on consistency, based on basketball IQ, despite what our great Will Kane says. And I got the Boilermakers making the Sweet 16 pretty easily. I really like Miami. I have them going up against Miami. I think Purdue wins this game by double digits against the Hurricanes. And they will face off against NC State, which would be a rematch of the Final Four from 2 years ago. I would love to talk about that. But we got to talk about another fantastic game first between Arizona and Arkansas. That's going to be a fun one.
Both of us have that game picked. However, right before we do that, Rob, I'll let you know that I have Missouri-Purdue facing off. That would be a Sunday game. These are Friday-Sunday matchups between Missouri-Miami and Purdue and Queens. So our second round game would be Sunday, and it's in Missouri. So I think Missouri having that home field advantage, home court advantage there in St. Louis could help them out. But now, on to our Sweet 16, an amazing matchup between Arizona and Arkansas. That game will be played in San Jose, California. Going to be an amazing matchup. That will be Thursday, Saturday. So the South and West regions will be Thursday, Saturday of the second weekend of the tournament. They do have that announced. So some good details there. So we will have next Thursday, March 26th, Arizona, Arkansas, and San Jose, California. And this is going to be the Darius Acuff show. I am sorry, but Arkansas's front court is not matching up with Arizona. Darius Acuff is going to have to play an incredible game. That is why he is such a high NBA prospect. He can do it. But I think that Arizona just has too much depth to throw at him defensively that's going to make it so difficult. He might get gassed. He might not get gassed. Darius Acuff is an absolute animal. And Arizona is going to have a fresh guy guarding him, whether it's Jaden Bradley, whether it's De La Rosa, whether it's Braden Burris. They can throw so many guys at him. I think that makes it so challenging on Darius Acuff. I will pick Arkansas in my heart bracket, but the hurry bracket, I'm going Arizona.
I like that. We had the great pleasure of being able to watch this Arkansas team firsthand. We were there for one of the greatest games, not only in the history of this season of college basketball, but in the history of regular season of college basketball when Arkansas lost in double overtime to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Was an amazing game. And I remember saying after that game, Arkansas, I know they're a 4 seed, but they're one of the only teams in the country that's maybe 3 seed and below that has the talent to match up with those top-level teams, to match up with Duke, to match up with Arizona, teams that compile their rosters out of 5-star guys and just sort of out-athlete people. Arkansas can do that. Like, they can match up with that because of the level of recruit and the level of athlete that they have. That being said, I completely agree that they are going to get dominated on the boards in this game. And I think Arkansas can thrive against defenses that are lackluster. This team, this Arizona Wildcats team, is the opposite of lackluster. They are dialed in defensively. They play great, efficient defensive basketball. What's their KenPom rate defensively? They're third in KenPom defensively. So, unfortunately for Arkansas,
Torvik as well.
and third in Torvik. So this Arizona defense, I think, is just a little too good. But this game could be close. As much as I love Arizona, I think they're phenomenal. Arkansas can 100% stick with them. I think I could see Arkansas jumping out to an early lead in this game with Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff sort of carving up Arizona's defense at first, and then Tommy Little will make adjustments, and Arizona will come back and win. That's my pick.
So we both got Arizona going to the Elite Eight. Now, our Sweet 16 matchups are different 100%. My Sweet 16 matchup for the bottom side of the West region is Gonzaga facing Missouri. I liked Gonzaga, their spot in that 3-6 range right there. They had to play Kennesaw State, and then I had them playing BYU. I think that's great matchups for them. Then I have them playing Missouri, and I think they're too good for Missouri. I like Missouri to pull off it would be two upsets, taking out the 7 seed Miami and number 2 Boilermakers, but I got Gonzaga going to the Elite Eight. And one of the reasons that I like picking Missouri here is because I think Gonzaga is a bad matchup for Purdue. I think Gonzaga would be Purdue. So I'm picking Gonzaga to the Elite Eight in the beginning of my bracket, which makes me think, okay, I have more of an opportunity to pick an upset that could happen. And so it doesn't mess up my bracket as much if I pick Missouri because I don't have Purdue going think Purdue will go any further because I have Gonzaga going to the Elite Eight. So when you're thinking about your bracket, folks, you got to think about it in that way. Yes, you don't want to take a 14 seed super far. But if you've got the 3 seed losing in the second round, hey, maybe take a chance on that 14 seed since you have the 6 seed going anyways. Just something that I'm thinking about. That's why I have Missouri winning here going to the Sweet 16, but that's why I've got Gonzaga making it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, some great intel. I remember when we were sitting on the couch watching this bracket come out, one of the things that one of our friends, Will Kane, said when this section was revealed, he went, gosh, this section of this bracket is terrible. And I remember him saying that, and I completely agree. I mean, I look at Gonzaga. They have so many flaws. Their backcourt is so not good. Their shot making is awful.
That's the hardest part of picking Gonzaga for me is the guard is not there.
I agree with that. I mean, BYU's defense is terrible. I think Missouri, I don't even think they're top 60 in KenPom. Miami, they're great, but they don't have any big wins. Kennesaw State is not a very good 14 seed. Purdue is so inconsistent up and down against good teams. This section of the bracket is so poor, in my opinion.
Missouri is sitting at 52nd in KenPom. I believe that is the second lowest KenPom rating for a at-large team.
Okay, I think they bumped that up, so that's good.
UCF, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, basically what I'm trying to say is this section, like if you look at this section of the bracket with Louisville, South Florida, Michigan State, UCLA, and UConn, I would pick like 4 of those teams to make the Elite Eight from this section. Same with the bottom left of the I think this is the South region. Houston and Illinois are in the same region down there, and this region has Gonzaga and Purdue. Are we joking? So I think this is a really, really good break for Purdue that they got this. That being said, this is the perfect section of the bracket to pick a Cinderella. I'm picking NC State to go the Elite Eight. I think they can do it. I think they have better shot making than anyone in this region. And I just love Darian Williams, honestly. We saw what Darian Williams did last March. He took that team over. The best players on that Texas Tech team during the regular season were Elijah Hawkins, Chance McMillan, and JT Toppin. Darian Williams was like the 4th option, but once March hit, he literally dominated everything. It was his show. It was his team. I think he's going to do the same thing this March, and I'm taking Darian Williams, the #1 player in the transfer portal this year, maybe the #2 behind Big Yaks, but I'm taking Darian Williams to lead the Wolfpack to another Elite Eight.
The last time NC State was an 11 seed, they made the Final Four, and they were part of the top right region. I don't think it was it was definitely not the West region, but they actually might have been.
Houston was the 1 seed, so it's probably the South.
Probably the South, but it was the top right side of the bracket, 100%. So NC State, they could do it again. Now, our Elite Eight matchups, both of us have Arizona advancing to the Elite Eight. Rob has them facing NC State. I have them facing Gonzaga. Another reason that I didn't pick Purdue and that I picked Gonzaga going to the Elite Eight is that no doubt I have Arizona making the Final Four. So really, I'm just trying to find and hit that Elite Eight team from the other side because I know I got Arizona going to the Final Four. That was one of my first thoughts, Rob. I said Arizona's got a great draw. I genuinely, we'll talk about it after, but I don't see a team in this region that can beat them. And I can't even make an argument for it, but maybe you'll pick NC State.
No, I would love to pick NC State. I love my Cinderellas, just like with Northern Iowa. I loved picking them against St. John's. I loved picking them against Kansas, and I think that makes sense, and I think it's possible. But then that Cinderella ran into the force that is Duke, and they got smoked. I think NC State would run into the force that is Arizona, and unfortunately get smoked. I would love this to be a close game. I would be so excited to watch this game with the anticipation of it being a close game. But NC State will have just played Texas, Gonzaga, and then gotten 5 days of rest, and then have to play Purdue before playing Arizona. I don't think there's a chance they would win this game. We have both got Duke and Arizona in the Final Four, 2 of the 1 seeds, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Arizona is so good. We talked about it already on this podcast. I'm taking them to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, so that's our West region. Both of us have Arizona going to the Final Four. Rob, I'm going to ask you real quick before. Do you think any of these teams in the West region could beat Arizona? I'm guessing our picks will be 100% only Wisconsin and or Arkansas. I'm going to say
Yes.
it might only be Wisconsin, actually.
I was going to say Wisconsin, I think, has
Yeah.
more of a chance. Wisconsin has they won at Michigan. They did that. That was awesome that they did that. I think Wisconsin can beat anybody for sure. So I think Arizona is included in anybody. So Wisconsin's my team there.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to our final region. Rob, we've made it to the final region, the Midwest part of the bracket, the bottom right part of the bracket. And we will have, first off, Michigan facing the winner of UMBC or Howard in the first round. I don't think both of us. I think UMBC, they're going back to the 16 seed once again, Rob.
They are.
Do it again. Could they pull it off?
I will say I have UMBC. I think that they are underseeded. I think UMBC should be higher. They had a great year in the American East.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? The American East Conference. They were fantastic. They were a 1 seed all year long. They have a higher WAB, wins above bubble, and KenPom than you would imagine. So I think UMBC should be a 15 seed. They got stuck in the play-in in the first 4 in Dayton against Howard. I think that's ridiculous. I think they beat Howard, and then they play Michigan. I would love for them to do it again. I mean, this is similar to Michigan's kind of similar to what UVA was when UVA won or when UVA lost to UMBC, and the fact that they have great defense. The only problem is Michigan gets out in transition like nobody and dominates you from that perspective. So no, there's no way UMBC wins this game against Michigan. I would love it to happen. I think UMBC is the best 16 seed in the tournament, but they're not beating Michigan.
That game will be played. UMBC will play Tuesday night in Dayton versus Howard. The winner of that game will play Michigan on Thursday night at 7:10 in Buffalo, New York. Both of us have the Michigan Wolverines. Moving on. Now, we have a very, very fun 8-9 matchup. I think this could be the most fun. Yeah, this is Ohio State TCU.
Ohio State TCU
is a very fun 8-9 matchup. And then this one would be second, if not first. It's a good debate. Georgia, St. Louis. Very, very fun matchup here. I know who Rob is going to pick, and I am going to rock with him, taking the St. Louis Billikens and Coach Josh Schertz.
I am taking Josh Schertz in the St. Louis Billikens as well. Very analytic, very efficient coach. He actually didn't play basketball at a high level at all himself. He just loves the sport, and he's out there saying, what are the most efficient shots we can get? That's been his philosophy, and he's got the Billikens as a 9 seed out of the A-10. I think that's fantastic. St. Louis was one of my picks to go to the Final Four, realistically, like a month ago. They were dominating everybody. They had the best point differential in college basketball history like a month ago. It was crazy. They were on a roll. But recently, they have been not nearly the same team. They've been really inconsistent. They've been inconsistent from a shot-making perspective and from a defensive perspective. If this was a month ago, I would take St. Louis to the Final Four. Unfortunately, their team has been so much more inconsistent. So I do think they beat Georgia. I don't think Georgia's defense is very good. I don't think they guard at a consistent level, and they rely a lot on 30-plus point games from specific players. So I think St. Louis is a more consistent team than Georgia is, but I don't think St. Louis is going to have a chance against Michigan. And I think this is going to be closer than what I would have thought it would have been a month ago.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
As I said, playing in Buffalo, New York, St. Louis, Georgia will be a very, very fun Thursday night game tipping off at 9:45 Eastern time. Georgia currently a 2.5-point favorite in that 8-9 matchup. Moving on to the 4-5. Here we got Texas Tech facing Akron, Alabama, playing Hofstra. Those games being played on Friday afternoon in Tampa, Florida. Texas Tech versus Akron. One of the 2 MAC teams. I just realized they put both MAC teams in the same region. So that's interesting. But Texas Tech, Akron in Tampa. Rob, you love Akron. I know you
love
do.
Akron, man.
Are you going to pick them to pull off the upset?
I'm going to, you know what? I love this Akron team so much. Everyone had been talking about Miami, Ohio all year long, and rightfully so. This is an amazing team. I'm not a Miami, Ohio hater. I love Miami, Ohio. I'm so glad they're in the tournament. They were 31-0. It was an awesome story. But Akron was so under the radar. They were 17-1 in the MAC.
If I'm not mistaken, of course, Miami of Ohio had the best record in MAC history. Akron, I think, at number 2, the second most wins in MAC history, and they just happened to be in the same season that Miami of Ohio happened.
I feel like they're like the most slept on team in the country. No one knows anything about Akron because everyone has been too busy focusing on Miami, Ohio. This Akron team is such a good shooting team from the 3-point line, from mid-range, from at the basket. They just are so efficient. They are an amazing basketball team. They're going up against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, I have so many feelings on. Texas Tech was another team that I was realistically going to take to go to the Final Four. I thought this team was awesome. Their high pick and roll with JT Toppin and Christian Anderson was as unstoppable as anything in college basketball. They were phenomenal. And then unfortunately, one of the most crushing injuries that I can remember in all of college basketball, JT Toppin tears his ACL and is out for the year. He's Texas Tech's best player. He could maybe have made a push to win National Player of the Year, but unfortunately for him, he was injured. And Texas Tech is just not the same team. And they were fantastic. They're still a great team without JT Toppin. But you can name any team in the country and take the best player off of that team, and they're just not going to be the top team. It's no slight towards Texas Tech. It's just a credit to how amazing JT Toppin is. So I would love to see Texas Tech go on a run in honor of JT Toppin. I really would. And I think they're going to win this game because of the brilliance of Christian Anderson. I think Akron also defensively, they really try and force a lot of turnovers. Christian Anderson is one of the best point guards in the country. He's phenomenal. So I'm not going to take Akron to win this game because of him. And also, Donovan Atwell is this year's Jack Golke. He only shoots threes, and he shoots them at a crazy percentage. So I think the combination of Atwell and Christian Anderson will be good enough to win the game against Akron.
Yeah, this is Akron's at least second straight year in the NCAA tournament. Last year, they were a 13 seed. They faced off against Arizona, lost not a very close game, 93-65. That Arizona team, a little bit different than this Texas Tech team, as you talked about, with losing JT Toppin. And I think one thing that matters for upsets, a front court can win a high seed the game, whether it's the 4 seed, the 3 seed, the 2 seed, whatever. The front court is dominant. There's not much the lower seeded team can do. There's just not. But without JT Toppin, I think Akron can keep it close. And yes, Christian Anderson is an absolute beast, but I'm going to take the Akron Zips to pull off the upset.
I don't mind that at all, man. I really don't.
Top upset right there. The Akron Zips pulling it off from the MAC.
And I think that's so realistic. I think Akron this year is so much better than they were last year. I really do. They were a 13 seed last year, as you said, got stomped by Arizona. This is a much better Akron team from a number standpoint. I would be shocked if this game is a blowout. I think that Akron definitely keeps it close. But again, I mean, I see all the things all the time of people saying, who would you take with the ball in their hands at the end of the game for the last shot? I don't think there are 3 people that I would take over Christian Anderson with the ball in their hands at the last second. Christian Anderson is fantastic. He's a great shot maker. So if it's a close game, which I think it's going to be, I just trust Christian Anderson more than I trust almost anybody else in this side of the bracket.
Mm-hmm. This game we played at 12:40 on Friday, the first game of this quadrant, second game of Friday. Then we'll have, right after that one, Alabama, Crimson Tide facing Hofstra out of the CAA. This is interesting. We were watching Hofstra earlier this week, and they showed not only who had won the conference in the last couple of years, but the player of the year in the conference. And former Alabama player Aaron Estrada was a 2-time CAA player of the year, taking Hofstra to the tournament. And we were like, wow, that's awesome. And then they matched us up. How could they do this? They're just putting us in such a terrible spot. I was going to root for Hofstra all the way, but they're facing our Alabama Crimson Tide. Both Rob and I go there. It's so hard to pick against your school, and that's why I'll be taking the Alabama Crimson Tide over Hofstra. Hofstra plays a very slow tempo. I believe that the championship game was in the 50s. Their game against the semifinals was in the 50s as well. Very, very slow playing basketball over there in the CAA. Alabama, when they face teams that are just lower on the talent pool, they just get them to play their pace. They get them to play their style of basketball, and you're not going to outshoot Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Hofstra, I was big on Hofstra before the tournament bracket came out. As you said, they played a really slow pace. They're 315th in the country per Bart Torvik in adjusted possessions per 60 minutes. They play really slow is what that means, which again is in direct contrast to Alabama's style of play. I do think Alabama's going to speed them up. Hofstra has a great defense. They really do. But unfortunately, I would love to pick Hofstra.
Mhm.
I just think this is a really bad matchup for them. Alabama's offense, like you said, I mean, their style of play is so unique, and they have they are very, very inconsistent against top-level teams in the country. I don't see this Alabama team making a lot of noise late in the bracket because of that. But this is why, I mean, Nate Oates has been to the bracket so many times and has never been upset by a mid-major program.
Last year was the closest game.
It was really close with, was it Robert Morris? It was Robert Morris. But I do think Alabama's going to win this game over Hofstra. Bad matchup for Hofstra, unfortunately, for them. But fortunately for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I got them moving on to the round of 32.
Yeah, look at this Hofstra team. Underrated more than I thought. They're ranked 91st in Bart Torvik. That's close to teams like Miami of Ohio, sitting at 86th, close to Yale at 92, High Point at 93, and Cal Baptist sitting there at 96. And Hofstra's right there. I don't think anyone's going to talk about Hofstra. I don't know why that is. They won't talk about it much. But as you talked about, a great defense, sitting there at third and 2-point percentage on defense. So that's a very good numbers for them. They also shoot the three at a decent clip, sitting there at 36.8% from the 3-point line. Going to be a great game right there, but I'm sticking with the Alabama Crimson Tide, as you said. Moving on to the bottom half of the Midwest region, we've got Tennessee going up against the winner of Miami of Ohio versus SMU. SMU, Rob, we didn't talk about this at the beginning. I think the luckiest team to make the tournament.
Oh, that was going to be my last thing. That was going to be my third take. Yeah, I completely agree with that. 100%.
Yeah, so we got Miami of Ohio facing SMU. That'll be the Wednesday night 11 play-in game. I am picking Miami of Ohio to win against SMU. However, they will not be Tennessee.
No chance.
Tennessee will win that game. However, I will be rooting my heart out. I will pick Miami of Ohio in my heart bracket. Folks, we're not making our heart bracket. This is just a hurry. You don't have to sit through us making 3 brackets because it's been 2 hours and 17 minutes, and we have not completed our hurry bracket. But
it's called the hurry bracket, too.
Yeah.
We're taking over 2 hours on it.
We're going to take Tennessee to win here in the first round.
Definitely. I mean, I agree. I would be cheering for Miami, Ohio if they played almost anyone in this tournament. And SMU is very lucky to get in. Everyone's going to be debating whether it should have been Auburn or Miami, Ohio. That's not what I would be debating. I would be debating whether it should be Auburn or SMU. And I would definitely side on the Auburn side because of the big wins that they've had. They beat St. John's. They beat Florida. They beat... Who else did they beat? There's one more big win that they had.
Did they beat Tennessee?
Yeah, they did beat Tennessee. That's what it is. So Auburn has those big wins. SMU does not. It's really that simple. They have similar records. So I think Auburn should be in this game against Miami, Ohio. But unfortunately, it is SMU. I do love watching SMU, though. I think Boopy Miller is one of the most fun guards in all of the ACC. When the game is close, I really like watching him. I'm going to pick Miami, Ohio because I think it's fun. Honestly, that doesn't really matter in your tournament bracket because it's not part of the scoring. But I will pick Miami, Ohio to win that game just out of vibes. And yes, there's no way they can hang with Tennessee. Tennessee's back or front court is just too good. They are so good at crashing the boards on the offensive side of the basketball. And then Nate Alment, I mean, Miami, Ohio does not have anyone anywhere near the level of talent that Nate Alment is. So I will take Tennessee as well to move on to the second round.
Yeah, we just talked about it with Alabama, Texas Tech, Akron, Hofstra, those games, that the front court is what really separates, the better seeded team. I always get confused when I say high and low teams. Like, what do we really mean there? So let's just go with better seed. The better seeded teams, when they have that strong front court, it's so hard to beat. That's why we're taking Tennessee. That's why I'm taking Virginia as well. I just think their front court is too strong for Wright State. We watched them play in the Horizon League. I wasn't super impressed. I've seen better Horizon League teams. And honestly, Rob, we didn't talk about this, but they're definitely overseeded from where we saw in a lot of bracketologies.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think it's a little ridiculous. I am also taking Virginia to win this game pretty easily. I don't think it's going to be very much of a conversation. Virginia is one of the more well-rounded teams in the country, too. They don't do anything, or they don't have a lot of weaknesses on that team. They got great paint protection. They got good shot making. They got a great player in DeRitter that I would give the ball to with the game on the line. They've got a great shooter who wears a headband. Can't remember his name, but I can tell you he's a great shooter. And I like the Virginia team to potentially make a run and to definitely beat Wright State in the first round.
These will be Friday afternoon games. Virginia and Wright State tipping off at 1:50 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Tennessee facing the winner of Miami of Ohio and SMU at 4:25 on Friday. Moving on to the final round of 64 games in the Midwest region. Our final round of 64 games in our bracket picking.
Come on, man.
And we've got Kentucky facing Santa Clara. Big Blue Nation. I'm going to take the Kentucky Wildcats over Santa Clara. I think they're just a little bit too talented for Santa Clara. And I think Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats are just going to be so desperate. They have to win at least one game in this tournament. There's no way that they can lose to Santa Clara. They can lose on the basketball court, but
This is a can't lose
This
situation.
is a can't lose situation. They just cannot lose this game, and I'm gonna take Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a can't lose situation for the Wildcats. They have so much talent. They spent $20 million on their roster, and you can see it. I mean, they've got a lot of great players. They really do. I love Mark Pope. A lot of people don't like Mark Pope. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach. I love how he utilizes his transfer portal. I really do. But at the same time, I think they're going to lose to Santa Clara. Santa Clara's offense is spectacular. They're 15th in Torvik in offensive efficiency. They're higher in Torvik than Kentucky is, which is crazy. I don't think anyone would ever expected Santa Clara to have a higher Torvik rating than Kentucky. That is insane. But you might look at this Kentucky-Santa Clara game. You might tell yourself, Kentucky's got such a higher talent gap. They must be so much taller. They must have so much more length. They must not even be close. Santa Clara is so big and so good and so smart in the front court. Like, it is shocking how good and smart they are down there. That's why they were able to beat St. Mary's twice. And they also have a very exciting freshman, number 1, with the 3 crosses on his arm. Hammond is his last name. I can never remember his first name. That dude is awesome. Between these two teams, if I'm taking a single player with the ball in their hands with the game on the line, it is Hammond, 100%. So that being said, I'm taking the offense, I'm taking the big front court, and I'm taking the shocking athleticism from the Santa Clara Broncos to give that Kentucky team the loss that they can't have. So I'm taking the Broncos over the Wildcats. I apologize to my great cousin, Caroline Harper, if she watches this video. She's a Kentucky fan. I love Kentucky. I do. I love Mark Pope, but I just love the Santa Clara team a little bit more.
And now we're moving on to our final round of 64 game of our hurry bracket, and it's going to be one of the more hurried picks. Iowa State versus Tennessee State. Tennessee State, the first team to punch their ticket by winning the championship game. Technically, it was Long Island, but that was because the championship game, the other team wasn't eligible for the tournament.
Ridiculous.
Tennessee State was the first team to punch their ticket. They knocked off Morehead State in the OVC championship game, but they've been waiting. Man, they've been waiting a while. They will have had 10 days between their games, I believe, since playing their championship game and their first-round tournament game. That's why I'm going to take Iowa State. Not because Iowa State's better, just because Tennessee State had such a long gap between games.
That's the only reason? Like, if Tennessee State just had won.
If they had just played, I'd probably
they might have a conversation here. I mean, I'm
but
just saying.
since they didn't, no, we're not going to have a conversation.
You know what I'm looking at right now? What if we got a Tennessee versus Tennessee State game in the Sweet 16? That would be pretty exciting.
Sick.
I mean, those are 2 big-time rivals, man. I'm telling you. But yeah, I'm taking Iowa State. We don't have to spend much time on this one. Iowa State is not losing this game.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the round of 32 here in the Midwest region. These games will be played on March 27th, which is Friday, March 27th in Chicago, Illinois. Here we go. We got Michigan. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I completely skipped a round right there. We're still in the round of 32. This will just be on this weekend. Sorry, folks. Michigan versus St. Louis. Wow. Sorry. Julio Rodriguez just robbed Aaron Judge of a home run. A little distracted there.
Oh, my goodness.
That was crazy. Michigan facing St. Louis. I think this will not be very close, Rob. I think the front court of Michigan is just too strong. As you guys know, Robbie Avila, the center for St. Louis, it's just not big enough. This is just a bad matchup for St. Louis. Illinois' front court is just too strong. That's why I've got the Wolverines moving on to Sweet 16.
Man, I would love to disagree with you so much. I really would. I feel like every year I pick a 1 seed to go out in the round of 32 to one of the 8 or 9 teams. Every year I do it. This year, I just can't convince myself to. I really can't. I would love to pick Bennett Sturts over Florida. I would love to take Ohio State or TCU over Duke. I would love to take my Aggies to take down the Arizona Wildcats. And I would love to take over all of those. I would love to take my boys, my St. Louis Billikens, who I've been cheering for all year long, to take down the Michigan Wolverines. There's just no way. They don't have the athleticism. Michigan is way too big, way too athletic, and just way too well coached and good to lose this game to St. Louis. I would be utterly flabbergasted if Michigan is not in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, our second round of 32 game from the Midwest region. I've got Akron. In Alabama playing. Rob has Texas Tech in Alabama playing. And one of the reasons, Rob, that I picked Akron, not only do I think they really have a shot to win that game, but it makes my second round pick easier. I cannot purely say Alabama's better than Texas Tech, but I can say that Alabama's better than Akron. And I got to take my Crimson Tide going on to the Sweet 16. It's my senior year, folks. I got to at least see my team go to the Sweet 16 here my final year at Alabama. And there's no analysis here.
No,
I mean,
understand.
Alabama's a 4, Akron's a 12. There's not much analysis here. I want Alabama to advance the Sweet 16.
Well, I'll give you some analysis. Akron is a great shot-making team, and they're great on offense. They're going to try and out Alabama. I don't think anyone is able to out Alabama. So, yeah, I agree with that. If those 2 teams were to play, I think that Akron is just a worse version of Alabama, in my opinion. So that being said, I have Alabama versus Texas Tech. And I just think it's interesting on your bracket, you have Alabama as a 4 seed, beating a 13 seed, and then getting to play a 12 seed, winning that game, and then getting to face Elliot Cadeau in the Sweet 16.
I was just looking this up to make sure. 2 years ago, Alabama made its first Final Four ever. And I was just checking to make sure that Elliot Cadeau was on that North Carolina team. And he was. And looking at his stat line, folks, he was 3 for 9. But more importantly, North Carolina finished 12 of 32 from three-point land. Now, people will say that's a good clip. We all know as Alabama fans watching that game that the reason that Alabama won is because they got North Carolina to play Alabama basketball. North Carolina was so hot from the three-point line early in that game. And you know what they wanted to do? They wanted to keep shooting three-pointers. They did. Late in the game, they didn't make them. Alabama barely won this game. This was an incredible game, 89-87, 2 years ago in the Sweet 16. But they got them to play their game. They got Elliot Cadeau to play this game. No, Alabama was daring him to shoot the three-point every single game. I mean, he would have the ball and they would just scoot back. Will Alabama do this again? Absolutely. Will they be able to win the game? We'll see in a second because we got to pick our other round of 32 games. Tennessee versus Virginia in the round of 32, bottom half of the Midwest region. Rob, I'm going to do it. I'm taking the Tennessee Volunteers. I think their physicality is really going to give Virginia a lot of trouble here. I think this will be a good, really good defensive battle. Ryan Odom, very nice job in his first year at Virginia. I think the talent gap on this team is still there. It still exists. They gave Duke a really good battle last night in the ACC title, more than I thought they would. They had some nice shot making right there. They were able to get good shots, but I think Tennessee's physicality is just too strong. I think I'm going to take Tennessee going on to Sweet 16.
Definitely Tennessee's physicality is going to play a part in this game. Their offensive rebounding is so consistent, and it's something that they can rely on so much, despite bad shot making at times from Ament, despite ridiculous shot selection from Jacoby Gillespie sometimes. This Tennessee front court does a fantastic job getting their team second chance after second chance after second chance. And that's all Rick Barnes. That's what he's done forever and ever. That's just what he does as a college basketball coach, is create that feisty environment, that feisty identity and culture that this team has always had. And I think they're going to ride that into the Sweet 16. I completely agree with you. Virginia's fantastic, but Tennessee doesn't really like to score in the paint that much. Virginia's paint defense is fantastic, but it just doesn't really matter against Tennessee. Because where they can shot block really well with Ugonna, what's his last name? I don't remember how to pronounce it. It's some African. Tennessee, that's not going to affect them. Their game is middies and three-point shots and offensive rebounding. And I think Virginia's going to have a really hard time stopping those things. But definitely a huge shout-out to the best first-year coach in college basketball this year, Ryan Odom, for getting Virginia to a 3 seed in his first year after not making the tournament last year. That is so impressive what he was able to do. Unfortunately, I have his run being cut short in the round of 32. But it's been a great season for the Cavaliers.
Yeah. Now, our final round of 32 game of our predictions. And here in the Midwest region, we've got the Kentucky Wildcats facing Iowa State. And one of the main things that I just dislike about this matchup for Kentucky is their guards they're good, but they're missing Jalen Lowe. Excuse me.
They are?
He's been out for a long time. I know that. But why is this a bad matchup? Iowa State loves to turn people over. I think that just comes up and makes it too difficult for Kentucky. I'm going to take the Cyclones. Moving on to the Sweet 16, I think it's as simple as that. I think that Iowa State will be able to turn them over. And when Iowa State turns you over, you're just not going to win.
I agree. And that's been their bread and butter all year long. And it's very simple to see. Like, if you look at all the games that Iowa State has lost versus the games that they've won, the common denominator is if they win the turnover margin. That's it. And I have Iowa State going up against Santa Clara in this game. Santa Clara does not take care of the ball relatively well. That's one of their weaknesses. That just plays perfectly into the Iowa State Cyclones' hands. I would love to pick Santa Clara to win this game, but it's a bad matchup. So I'm taking the Cyclones with a very easy pick to make it to the Sweet 16.
And now we have our Sweet 16 taking place in Chicago, Illinois on Friday and Saturday of the second weekend. We've got Michigan, Alabama. We've got Tennessee, Iowa State. First matchup, Michigan, Alabama. This is the hardest game to pick of this entire tournament because I want Alabama to win so much and I can see the path, but I just also can't see the path because Michigan's front court is just way too good. I think Alabama has a solid starting center in Aiden Sherrell. They do. He's a good player, former 5-star. He can do it. But they have nothing behind him. I'm sorry. I'm not going to name them, but there's just no one behind Aiden Sherrell to help him. I'm not going to say if Alabama had Charles Bediako. I'm not going to do that. But there's no one after Aiden Sherrell. He would have to play 40 minutes and play the 5 and the 4 for Alabama to be able to match up in this game because they have Yaks at the 3. They have A.D. Mara at the 5. Morez Johnson comes in at the 4. I mean, there's just no way. There's just no way Alabama can physically do this in the paint, man. It's just not going to happen. Michigan's going to win this game. I just don't even see how Alabama can manipulate Michigan into shooting three-pointers If they can, Alabama can win this game. If they're able to do that, NATO just has some absolute wizardry Houdini stuff going on. But it's not going to happen. Michigan's going to dominate in the paint, and they're going to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made a comment earlier with Louisville versus Michigan State where I said the game could be over and Louisville could have 0 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think this game could be over and Alabama could have negative rebounds. That's how bad this game could go.
Yes, it's just not going to happen, folks.
I think Michigan reminds me so much of Florida in the way that they play. Inconsistent shooting from the guards, dominant front court, and they like to get out in transition.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama could play Florida 100 times and lose every single time.
The most frustrating part of this game as an Alabama fan will be when Michigan continually scores and Alabama continually tries to go out in transition and shoot 3-pointers.
It's Rick and another Michigan bucket.
Yep, it's going to be get out in transition. Here goes Michigan with a layup. Alabama tries to go back really fast. They miss again, and Michigan goes down and gets. It's just going to be, folks. It just is going to look too much like the Florida game, and you're getting a little bit of our bias here. We have been, I wouldn't say unbiased, but this is where our bias is going to come out a little bit. Not that we're going to pick Alabama, but just that we're going to be. It's going to be hard for us to watch this game, folks.
It is. It definitely is. There's not much more for me to say. Michigan's going to win this game. I'm sorry.
Now, I think this is going to be a fun one. Tennessee, Iowa State is going to be a very fun game. I think these teams match up in a very interesting way, that it's going to be ugly, it's going to be gritty, and I think I'm going to pick Tennessee, though, to get enough offensive rebounds to win this basketball game. I think Iowa State has decent shot making from Joshua Jefferson and from Monkilovich, but Tennessee is too good defensively to let one player get open shots. They're going to make Monkilovich have to put the ball on the deck, and it's not going to be good for him. I think Joshua Jefferson could have a good game, but I just like Tennessee to make this super physical. I think they both could turn the ball over a good amount. That's where I don't think that Tennessee won't turn the ball over, but I think that they can turn Iowa State over where that margin doesn't become such a big of a gap where it automatically just shifts to Iowa State's hand. But I think Tennessee can do this. I think I'm going to have them going all the way to the Elite Eight out of the SEC.
I mean, these two teams are very similar. That's definitely true. Tennessee and Iowa State both have great defenses. Both have studs that you can go to get a bucket at all times. Iowa State with Josh Jefferson, Tennessee with Nate Ahmed. They both have point guards that facilitate things, that run the offense. You know, Jacoby Gillespie with Tennessee, Tamin Lipsey with Iowa State. So these teams are very similar. I will 100% say that. That being said, Iowa State is really hot right now. I think they finished the season stronger than Tennessee has. I think they have a lot more momentum. So I am picking Iowa State to win this game because not only that, but they've also been more consistent. I think Tamin Lipsey is one of the most consistent point guards in the country. So I will take Lipsey, although I will say I will not be shocked in the slightest if this game happens and Tennessee wins. I think that's very realistic.
Yeah. And I think looking ahead to the Elite Eight matchup that we not both have, but that I have between Michigan and Tennessee could be really interesting. I don't like Tennessee basketball. I don't. I cannot lie about that. But I see how Rick Barnes coaches and how he gets his team to play, that I think the Michigan-Tennessee matchup could be very, very interesting. I think they could make it so interesting on Michigan's offense to try to get buckets. I'm still going to take Michigan. I think they're too good, and I think they could overwhelm Tennessee in the paint and also keep them from getting offensive rebounds. But I do see Tennessee's defense making it extremely difficult on Michigan, where this game could be close. But I'll still take the Wolverines and Dusty May in his second season in Ann Arbor getting to the Final Four.
Yeah, and again, I talked about my dislike for chalk. I really don't like it. I despise the fact that I am about to pick all 3-1 seeds to make Final Four and a 2 seed. Like, it's just not fun. I want some upsets, man. I really do. But at the end of the day, and I remember we had this last year when all 4 1 seeds made the Final Four. It was an awesome Final Four.
It was.
It was one of the best Final Fours, if not the best Final Four that we've had in a very long time. So I am taking Michigan to win this game. I think their front court is just way too good. I think they completely suffocate Iowa State on the glass. And then I just don't see how Iowa State wins this game, legitimately. And with watching Michigan, I'm going to have to keep reminding myself, they're 18 to 22-year-old kids. They are not Greek gods, even though they might look like it on the basketball court. They are vulnerable. There is a chance that they have an off game, that one of them gets in foul trouble, and they struggle.
Lost today to Purdue.
They did. They literally just lost to Purdue, and they have struggled in a lot of games this year. That's why they play the game. Michigan doesn't auto-advance to the Sweet 16 through St. Louis. That they could lose. They could have an off shooting night and get in foul trouble and lose. They could 100% lose to Alabama if Alabama gets hot and actually hits those transition buckets. They could easily lose to Iowa State if Iowa State's having their best game of the year. We've seen Iowa State beat almost anybody. They nearly beat Arizona on a neutral floor 2 nights ago. So there's a very large possibility that Michigan doesn't make the Final Four, but there also is a very large possibility that they do, and that's the one that I'm riding with right now.
All right, so we're going to name our Final Fours. I believe we have the same Final Four, except for one team that comes from one game that we both have. So I have Duke and Illinois on the left side, Arizona and Michigan on the right side. Rob, you have
I got Duke versus Houston on the left side, and I got Arizona versus Michigan on the right side.
so some very fun matchups. In my Final Four, I have no teams that have played each other this year. I have no real historical matchups to give either. But, Rob, you have a super fun historical matchup there on the left side.
I do. I'd be really excited about it. I don't know if y'all have been watching college basketball in the last 2 years, but if you have, you would remember a Duke-Houston game last year between, in my opinion, the two best teams in college basketball that season. I don't want to hear about the Florida Gators. I don't want to hear about them. Duke and Houston, to me, that was a national championship game last year, and it was incredible. Duke was winning all game long, and Houston came back and won that game, which kicked off a narrative about John Shire that he can't close games, that he's not a clutch coach, that they can't win big-time games in the end moments of the games because of his inconsistency in those big-time moments. So does Duke avenge that? Can they finally rectify in that matchup in the Final Four against that same team in Indianapolis? Can they beat Houston? Can they get over that hump? Or can Kelvin Sampson finally get over the hump of winning a national championship? I mean, we've seen what this Houston team can do. They're phenomenal. They're one of the best coach teams in the country. I think they were a little bit better last year than they are this year, but they're still a great team that can compete with anybody. But at the end of the day, I look at this Duke team and I say, wow, they're just too good, man. The talent that they have is unreal. They're so well coached. They're one of the best teams in the history of KenPom. So I'm going to make the obvious pick and go with the Houston Cougars. I'm taking Houston to go to the national championship game. The late game shot making, man, it's big time. We've talked about it all series long. Guards win in March. It's the truth. And I just trust Kingston Flemings and Emmanuel Sharp more than I trust any of the other guards on Duke's team. And so I'm riding with the Cougars.
That is an awesome way to pick that, Rob. That was very entertaining to listen to. Now, I took Illinois to make it out of the South region. I took them to knock off Houston because of their offense against the very, very tough, difficult defense of Houston, and then to knock off their Big Ten brothers in Nebraska. And now I look at this Duke-Illinois matchup, and I see another elite defense that Illinois has to face in the Duke Blue Devils. But I think the difference is the length of Duke 1 through 5. I think it makes a big difference when Keaton Wagler has the basketball. I think he will have a lot more trouble, whether it's against Caden Boozer, whether it's against Dame Sarr, your boy, compared to having to go against Kingston Fleming. It's no knock on Kingston Fleming. He's a hardcore, hard-nosed player, but he doesn't have the size. I think Keaton Wagler will be able to take advantage of that back in the Sweet 16. But I think here it's going to be way too difficult for Illinois to generate offense. I think Kylan Boswell and Keaton Wagler have too much trouble against Duke's defense. I'm taking the Devils to go to the national championship game. And now, our final Four game, Arizona and Michigan. We both picked this game. This would be an absolute war, Robert. I mean, oh my goodness. You think about the guys in the paint playing in that basketball game. Goodness gracious. It's going to be just blood, sweat, and tears on the court that night.
Someone might die, man. I'm telling you. Between Michigan and Arizona, the level that those guys play physically, it's going to be crazy. It's going to look like a war, legitimately. But this is the game that it feels like we've been leading up to this game all video long. Like we've talked about how amazing Arizona was from the start to the finish, how great their front court is, how awesome their guards are. I even said out of the 4-1 seeds, the guy I want with the ball in his hands at the very end of the game is Anthony DeLorso of Arizona. And we talked about how amazing they are. And then we've had to keep reminding ourselves that Michigan is not full of Greek gods. They're full of college-aged kids because that's how great they've been playing. And I know they just lost the Big Ten, but it feels like they are the team to beat this year. So Arizona and Michigan, I'm so excited that we're going to get this matchup. It feels like just a heavyweight battle between two Goliaths. So I'm excited to preview it. In my opinion, I think it could go either way, if I'm being honest. It is so tough to sit here without knowing exactly what's going to happen in these games leading up to the Final Four game and sit here and pick it and give an opinion on it because there's so much left that has to happen before this game happens. But that being said, I have to pick Arizona in this game because of that late game shot making. Like if you were to tell me either of these two teams blows the other one out, I'd be shocked. So I think it's going to be in a close game. And in a close game, I trust the Arizona Wildcats.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm taking Arizona. I'm taking Jaden Bradley and Braden Burris. I don't feel like I can add a lot to it. You just presented it so well right there, Rob. I'm going with the Arizona Wildcats to advance to the national championship. Now, you have a Big 12 showdown.
I do.
I have an ACC versus Big 12 showdown. And we just saw Arizona and Houston last night. So you can talk about that game. You have so much to talk about. Recency bias right there. You want a rematch of that Big 12 title game.
I do, and I would really enjoy it, man. Let me switch over to my bracket real quick so I can give you my final take of the night. I think Arizona is spectacular. Obviously, you've heard me talk about them all night long. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. There was a team at the beginning of the year in the preseason that I circled. You know, everyone was talking about UConn. Everyone was talking about Florida and Kentucky and St. John's and who they thought the best team in the league was going to be. But I didn't take any of those teams. I stuck with my boys, the team that I was riding with all year long last year, the team that I thought was the best in the preseason, and I have never wavered. My preseason national championship pick was the Houston Cougars. And you're telling me I haven't been in the national championship and I have a chance for my preseason national championship pick to win the whole thing? I'm taking it. I'm taking the Cougars to win the national title. I'm taking Kingston Flemings, and I'm taking that freshman talent, and also one of the greatest players in Houston basketball history, Emmanuel Sharp, to finally cut down the nets. And how great would it be if Kelvin Sampson finally got to do it too? So I'm taking the Houston Cougars to cut down the nets in Indy and win against one of the best teams we've seen in a while in college basketball, in the Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, man, that would be exceptional. We'd love to see Kelvin Sampson get it. But my pick is between Duke and Arizona. This would be absolutely awesome. But I think the difference is the depth on the interior that Arizona can provide against Duke. I think Duke has an amazing front court. I think they're athletic. I think they're highly talented guys. But I think Arizona's guys are just a little bit tougher. They're a little bit bigger too. They're a little bit grittier. And I think they can just outpunk them. I think they will just want it more against these Duke big men. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Duke big men, but I think they will just out-physical them a little bit in a way that Duke hasn't faced in a while. Koa Pete will get in there. He will bully somebody. He can do it. Caden Boozer versus Koa Pete would be so fun. Sorry, Cameron Boozer versus Koa Pete would be so much fun in the national title game.
Awesome.
I am picking the Arizona Wildcats to win the national championship. Tommy Lloyd finally gets it done. He's had some really good teams in Arizona, some really, really good teams, and I think they get it done this year. I think they want it for him so much. They want it for that university, and they've got everything that they need to win the national title. They go 8-9 deep. They got front court. They got back court. They got elite shot making. They got late game shot making. The only thing I'll say, my national title pick is Arizona. I can't say I'm not worried about the three-point line. They are not great shooters.
They don't need it, man. They don't need it.
They don't need it. That's why they're my national championship pick. Is on April 6th, Monday night. I believe that Arizona Wildcats will be cutting down the nets. Rob, you're taking your Houston Cougars. I respect that. You've been rocking with them all year long. We did it, though. Our hurry brackets are complete. It only took 2 hours and 42 minutes. It is 9:57 on the East Coast. Wow.
I'm proud of
what
us,
an
man.
episode.
What a marathon. I've been waiting all year for this episode right after Selection Sunday. And I'm going to be talking more about the tournament the rest of the week. I'm going to try and get a couple more videos out before Thursday. But ladies and gentlemen, you could have anyone winning the national title, and I could find a way to reason that way to it. Other than Villanova, I probably couldn't give you a chance there for them. I mean, come on, Wildcats shouldn't even be in the tournament. But that being said, enjoy these next couple days. Enjoy filling out brackets, whichever way you do. If you fill out 40, enjoy those 40. If you fill out 3 or 1 or 2, just enjoy it, because this is one of the best times in all of sports. And if you want to take anything that we said and go use it in your bracket, feel free to. If you want to think that we're ridiculous and that all that we're saying is nonsense, feel free to do that as well. This is just us having fun. If you disagree, feel to let us know. And we just want to say, if you take anything away from this video, it is not that we love March Madness. It's not that we're at spring break, and it's not that we're having an amazing time thinking about these matchups. But it is that Jesus Christ loves each and every one of you guys watching this video. If you were the only person on earth, he would have died on the cross for you, just for you. That's how much he loves you. And no matter where you are, who you are, what you're doing, who you're with, he will always be there for you, no matter what. It's never too late to just love Christ. And if you wonder how you do that, it's by loving others. God is love. So by loving others, you bring love to them. And, this is not me saying that I'm better than anybody that's watching this video or that I'm better than Azaria or anybody else. This is just me saying that God loves each and every one of y'all just as much as he loves us. We're sinners. We're no better than y'all, but we've got each other and we're trying to work through things. And I promise, wherever you are in your life, it is never too late to turn to Jesus.
Absolutely, Rob. I absolutely love that closing, and we hope y'all take that away, number one, from this episode. I just want to say thank y'all for listening. Thank you to Robert, my boy, for letting me come on this podcast. We have been waiting to do this together. We've talked about doing this exact episode together for a long, long time. We've made it happen. 2 hours and 45 minutes of absolute brilliance. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my boys' channel right here. But also check out the Lost Sheep podcast.
Yes,
That's
sir.
my podcast. That's a Christian podcast I run with my boy Cole Bissett and Evan Abear. Don't forget to check it out. Rob, if you want to throw it in the description, we'd love to do that. But yeah, we thank y'all for tuning in. March Madness is here, folks. Go fill out a bracket. We hope you enjoy it. And of course, Rob, thank you so much, my boy.
No problem. God bless, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.